So let me ask y'all this question. Like, imagine
No.
gaming was out of your life, like completely. What would you do with that void in your life?
That drive.
Yeah, like what would your life look like?
Did you say a drug?
I said drive.
Oh.
He just like drugs. You already know. crack, smoking crack. I'm done. Yeah.
Is that
I would
it?
just fall into sin.
What part of dopamine did you not understand?
Did you not? Well, if it ain't another day in the Super Agile Nation, what's happening, brothers and sisters out there in the world? I did it. We are here. Let's do this. So I got the brothers themselves here with me. I want to first introduce our brother Kyle. Kyle, welcome. Welcome to the Super Agile world.
Feel a brand new day.
Oh,
Oh
man.
yeah.
That right there, son. Ooh, that's a good memory. You're
I'm doing good today, though.
You're in a good
Thanks
mood.
for asking.
Good. I mean, a good mood. It sounds like you're in a good mood, man.
I can't complain.
Okay, can't complain. Of course, the boy Kyle's in a good mood, and of course, we got the brother Steve. Brother Steve, what's happening? Welcome, brother.
Hola, Senor Brad. ¿Qué tal?
Hola, señorita. Is that correct?
I should have known.
I don't know.
What a cheap, like, what a low blow.
It's not a
Not a
low.
not a low blow. What am I trying to say? What a cheap, like, basic retort.
Hola.
That's a little better, yeah.
There you
Hit me
go.
with that hola.
So, so we are recording this post Thanksgiving. So, happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
No longer
out there.
thankful.
You know, if you got your thanks in, you should have got your thanks in earlier. If not, you missed your opportunity. Let me ask y'all. Y'all had a good Thanksgiving? Things were good? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. I left. I went out to a cabin in North Carolina with my family. That was fun. Never done that before.
Ooh.
Left my work computer charger, so I've been struggling the last
Oh,
2 days. Yeah. Otherwise, I would say it was a pretty good Thanksgiving. How about you, Kyle?
Oh, to me. Okay. Yeah. Likewise. Very, very good Thanksgiving. Didn't lose any chargers this time.
Good man.
Thankfully. Did a lot of driving though. Family lives kind of far away,
Oh yeah.
and we had multiple Thanksgivings. I say kind of far away. It's only like an hour, but we had to drive back and forth a pretty good bit because we had separate Thanksgivings. But otherwise, a lot of good food, a lot of good memories.
I like it.
I'm thankful.
Well, I feel like when you live in city redacted, then you know
Redacted.
everyone's going to be far away.
Yeah. Yeah, deep.
But I love it in redacted.
Yeah. Thereabouts in the bayou. But
On the bayou.
in the bayou, we rode crocodiles. Not even alligators. We rode crocodiles. Wait,
Crocodile.
alligators, gators, crocodiles, dials, right?
Mhm.
Crocs.
The shoes.
Yes, the shoe. Oh, speaking of Crocs, my Thanksgiving I spent with my sister and my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law's brother.
Are they reptiles?
I'll come around to it.
They refuse to wear anything but Crocs.
And my niece and my parents, my mom, and my dad, and my brother-in-law's brother got my niece some Crocs. So it was like these cute little rainbow Crocs. They were like unicorn. She's big into unicorns, so it was pretty cool. And I was like, "Yo, you gotta rock these Crocs," and she was like, "Look at me!" She was so happy. So
Rock them Crocs.
little Crocs. And also, I think I told you guys already. She was on this donkey tip where she kept going hee haw, just randomly. So like we'd just be sitting there watching a movie, and then she'd go hee haw, just out of
I mean,
nowhere.
nobody knows. That could be the sound that unicorns make.
True story.
Is that going to be the in joke for this episode? Just random. Hee-haw.
I didn't plan to do it. I feel like you can't do it now that you put it in. It's
Yeah.
like, you know.
Maybe that was like a preemptive strike.
Smart man.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to tell this story, but all I'm going to say is that on my way back from Thanksgiving, I haven't told y'all this yet. Me and my wife actually saw right after a police car crashed into the medium of the highway and flipped onto its
Whoa.
side, like
Whoa.
had just happened. And like me, like there's some women, there, like a woman, there's like two women there, I guess, who had just seen it happen, and they were outside like yelling, trying to wave people down. So I pull over, and then another dude pulls over, and me and him are the first people on the scene. And the only thing that was told us at the time was his car's still running. So the only thing that meant to us is there's a chance that a fire might break out, because it was flipped.
Ooh, yeah.
And he was trapped in there. We could see his hand moving, like kind of shaking, jittering.
Oh no.
But he was trapped and he couldn't move. So me and the dude was just the first time I've ever legally damaged a police vehicle. But I'll just say, long story short, the police officer's all right. I got to break the window of a police officer. It's a cruiser. It was a big old SUV. A lot of stuff happened.
Big window. A lot of window to break.
Yeah. So
and those things are like reinforced, aren't they?
Yeah. So we couldn't break it with our kicks. And the other dude was a pretty big dude, and he was like ramming his chest, and he was like, "Roar! Roar!" and he was like banging into it, and he couldn't break it. So we were trying to kick it, trying to get into the car. Couldn't find ways in. The trunk was open, but it was like jammed, so I couldn't get in there. Finally, another officer showed up, broke the window like slightly with his little baton, and then we were kicking it, and then I got a stick. I found a stick somewhere. Not a stick, it was more like a log, and I jammed it in the window and then like broke out the glass. And then out of nowhere, somebody just runs up from behind me and just starts kicking the window and yelling, "We gotta get him out! We gotta get him!" Just kicking the window. And first of all, I thought it was a child, because it was like a really small, like, figure with a hoodie on, kicking it.
Oh.
And it looked like wearing Tim's, so it was the correct
Nice
material.
Nice.
But the thing is, the way they were kicking it, because I'd already broken a hole, I was really afraid that they'd kick more and like their leg would go through too far and they'd cut their ankles, which would cause a whole nother problem. So after like 3 or 4 kicks, I like pulled them off. I was like, "Hey, you're going to cut your ankle. Like, chill out." But long story short, I keep saying long story short and then keep going.
You sure do. And you
But-
just
But all I'm going to say is
Multiple short stories.
eventually the police officer like was able to communicate after we broke open the window, and he was like, "I'm okay. My neck hurts." And he managed to like slide to the back seat from the front
Please
seat.
stop assaulting my car.
So
I am writing.
So we decided like we're not gonna. I kept assaulting. Just so we just like all conferred like, "Hey, since his neck hurts and we didn't smell any gas. I didn't smell any gas. The car was still running. We were just like, let's just wait till the ambulance comes.
Let's just get that trunk open.
You know, so get what we need. You know, just looting a police car. But so yeah, that was an adventure. It was an adventure. It was kind of wild.
So
I
you're
have,
a
a,
hero.
I have a story to tell
Go for it.
from the previous episode. It's a lot shorter, hopefully.
Oh, you're right. That is a nice story.
So anyway, so let's go ahead and jump into the episode. That's going to be the running game.
I was denied my story last episode.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll make a long story short.
No, you won't.
My wife and I
Impossible.
we were ordering pizza from a unnamed restaurant, and we went
Chipotle.
we went to the
Got 'em.
restaurant to pick up the pizza, and she waited in the car. I walked in, and there was this guy behind the counter. He caught my eye, and I walked over, and I was like, "Hey, I'm here to pick up pizza." And this is a black guy, and you'll see why I mention this soon.
Racism. Okay, continue.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, "Hey, I'm here to pick up a pizza," and he's like, "Oh, great, for who?" And my wife had ordered it, so I said, "Oh, it's for Keisha," and he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Keisha, maybe Keisha," and he's like, "Oh, okay, sure." So he goes to the pizza, and he goes to the back and gets the pizza, and he comes back, and he's looking at me kind of sly, and he's like, "Hey, man, let me give you a tip." And I was like, "What?" And I walk over, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Who? So what, are you like the Uber driver?" And I'm like, "No. What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Who are you then?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm her husband." And I like point, I kind of like gesture to the car, like she's in the car right there. And he's like, "Oh man, I was gonna tell you, like, you know, that's not how you say her name." He thought I was mispronouncing. He's like, "I thought her name was Keisha," and I'm like, "No, everyone thinks that all the time."
Fair enough.
So he was going to try to correct the poor white guy on how to say the the strong, independent
Confidently
Black Widow's
incorrect.
name. Confidently was correcting me.
And then Steve goes, "Man, you really had me sniggering over here." Wakes up 3 days later in the hospital.
Yeah. So anyway, it was that was my microaggression story. I thought Kyle appreciated it. I thought you would appreciate it.
I appreciate him correcting you.
Yeah, I did too. I did thank him. I was like, "Look, man, I appreciate you looking out." But she does get her name mispronounced.
Keisha's never had the heart to correct them herself.
Yes.
She just goes by like her nickname all the time. It's
Like,
too much trouble.
10 years later, she's like, "He don't even know my name."
Oh my gosh, dude. I would never hear the end
Insist
of it.
on putting an A in there.
You know,
It's Kiasha.
I'll tell you this. Pizza people are always ready to tell you the realness. I remember going to a pizza shop one time, ordering a pizza, and the dude who gave me the pizza said, "Hey man, let me help you out, son." And I was like, "Okay." He's like,
Wisdom.
Check this out. He's like, "If you ever need pizza, call this number."
Oh my
I
gosh.
was like, "What?"
Is it a
The
different
emergency
number
pizza line?
than the?
He was like, I always hook my people up. Always got them discounts on the pizza.
What do you mean by pizza?
And I was like, he was like, "Yeah, man, check this out. Just call and tell them that," and I think his name was like Tony. He's like, "Call, make sure you ask for Tony. I got you." He gives me the number. It's the number for the Papa John's that I just went to.
It is legendary.
And he gave it. I was just like, "Really, Tony?" I didn't even say anything. I was like in high school. He was a grown man. I was just like, I was like, cool.
Can you imagine calling a pizza place and be like, "Hey, can I get Tony?" Like,
No.
what a vague
What would happen?
recommendation.
He's like, "Hey, just call. Anytime you call, ask for me." He was like, he really thought, the way he was saying it was like he was really about to put me on game. Like he's about to put me on something I'd never heard about. Some like secret. He's just like,
Yeah.
and basically all he's doing is like, "I'll give you my employee discount. You pay me $8. I only pay $6 for it. I make $2. That's really what was happening.
That reminds me of not Tomorrow War. What was it? That movie we watched with Chris Pratt.
Yeah, you had it tomorrow.
It was the Tomorrow.
It was
War.
Tomorrow War?
Yeah, we've talked about it so much that it has supplanted The Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, that's what it is.
As like the default Tomorrow movie.
I just assumed I got it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
But it reminded me of like when the part where he was just meeting random people and they were like, "If you ever need something, you call me." And then like at the end of the movie, he was like, "I know a guy." I feel like at one point in your life, you're going to need a pizza really desperately. And you're going to say, "I know a guy."
I wonder if I still have that number in my phone. Because I feel like he actually put the number in wrong and I had to correct. Like he didn't give me enough letters in the number or something like that. But anyway, that
no
was,
area code.
I'm gonna find it. I'm pretty sure I still have it in my phone. Because I've had the same.
You should ask for Tony.
"Hey, can I speak to Tony?"
Is Tony still there?
Next time you call him, he's going to have his own pizza kitchen.
Tony's
Papa
Pizza
Tony's
Kitchen.
now.
I'm telling you, I know the secret, bro. If you ever need, I'll tell you, let me hook you up, son. Just call this number and ask for me. Gave me Papa John's main line number. So anyway.
This number is no longer in service.
Tony no longer works here. If you're calling for him, he in jail. So, thank you for listening this far. If you listen to us just chatter on about crazy stories, I feel like what we watched right prior to this is what has us in this energy. You know, we watched a viral video that came from my high school a long time ago. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to tell you to look up Eli, I Did It. ELI, I Did It. That was my high school. I was there when it happened. But that video gave us the right energy. But we're going to need this energy because today we're talking about something special. Something we've kind of, I feel like we've talked about in different ways at different times in different subjects. But really this idea of like being an adult and being a gamer, which we've talked about many times. But specifically, why do we still play games as adults? You know, and things around that, like how do we deal with competing hobbies, and could we ever imagine ourselves not being gamers in the future? Because I think one thing that I've noted about my personal life as I've grown older is that I've had to be a lot more, I don't want to say vicious, but I don't know.
Ruthless.
What'd you say?
Ruthless.
Ruthless. I like ruthless with my time and what I like. Cynical. Just every negative word. Depressed.
Pessimistic.
Intentional.
I like that. Not negative. Yes, but a positive. There we go. Intentional with my time. And I have at times had to like question my different hobbies. And I have questioned gaming. So let me ask y'all, like, has there ever been a period of time in your life where you thought, well, let me ask you this. Why do you still play games as an adult, as a grown person with a job, married, life, family? Like, what keeps you playing games? Like, not just phone games, but like really like console games, PC games, more like full length games at this point in your life?
I think we've said it before, but it's just like, it's something that I grew up with. That's also something that hasn't really been replaced in my life by another medium. Like, there's nothing equivalent in the quote unquote adult realm that kind of fills that same niche that games do.
Yeah.
So that's why I go back to them. It's because I just can't get what they offer anywhere else.
That's fair. Steve, do you?
And there's actually a couple reasons I can think of right now. I guess the surface reason is just that I enjoy them. I think that they are a very interesting medium. Like he called them a medium, but yeah, like as an art form, I play games not just for enjoyment, but also for like appreciating them as art.
Mm-hmm.
The same reason I read or like, I don't know, watch cool artsy shows. Like it's cool to, get into the expressions and the intentions behind what not the artist, the game developer was doing, and, appreciate all those things. I think it's a legitimate art form that needs to be appreciated. And going hand in hand with that, I think that I've kind of developed enough experience and taste to like if I switch to something else, what would I do? Like if so for example, let's say I got really into art, like actual like paintings instead of video games as an art form, I wouldn't know where to start. Like I haven't been like following famous painters my whole life, or the different genres of painting and imaging and stuff. I just think
you start with a single brush stroke.
Yes. Yes, my child.
I just think that like I've played a lot throughout my life and I've enjoyed it and I learned a lot from that. And it's one of the ways that I have chosen to continue experiencing, the kind of more beauty, abstract side of, being human.
That's real. It's
plus I like crushing zombies' heads under my foot.
Hey, there it is.
There it is. The violence. I mean, that's what games are all about. Violence, teaching violence, particularly to children.
My goal is to one day go on a shooting spree and then blame it on violent video games.
Yeah. Like specific games. Doom. Duke
Grand
Nukem.
Theft Auto.
Balan Wonderland.
Doom.
Balan Wonderland.
That will evoke violence.
That's a game that makes you want to have violence against the game developer.
Hurt people. It doesn't even matter. Just people. I just want to hurt people. I don't know.
You need to feel what I felt.
Feel my pain.
Frustration.
Yeah, there was a solid like year where I really didn't play any games. Like, I think it was like 2018 to like 2020. I think it was like at the same, like right after I left IBM, actually. I think, and like right toward it was like me and Kyle made,
you got a lot going on.
Amber. And during that time I was working as a full-time developer. And we had to work 45 hours a week as a developer at IBM. And I was a manager. So it wasn't that I was doing 45 hours with manager and that. I was also adding another 15 hours as a manager. So I would a lot of times go home and do more work. And I also was like really hardcore into game development at that time, you know? So I think for
I think
me,
you had some like relationship stuff happening too that you were trying to manage.
yes, I was
Life.
I was in life was real at that time.
Yeah.
Life was super real because that's when, Steve had moved down because of relationship happenings and, or taking my apartment. But anyway,
plus you were doing stuff. I'm like labeling all these things in your life. You were like helping out with like the church and stuff too.
yeah, I might have been starting to lead a ministry at my church. And also I was traveling back and forth between Atlanta and where I was living at the time, in the deep South in the Bayou. And, so it was
extra busy.
a lot going on, but like, I felt like gaming, like the thing that was keeping me from gaming or was replacing that was like game development. And so I almost felt like I was still kind of gaming, you know what I mean? Like, but I wasn't playing really any new games. I think like the last new game I had played in a long time was like Fortnite when it first dropped. And then there was like a big lull. And then I picked up gaming again when me and you moved moved in together with another one of our friends. And I kind of started picking games back up.
It's funny because when you were too busy to play games, that was when I was picking up games again after, the long drought of not having a console, not having a laptop that could really do that. Just kind of like hoping for the future.
So do you feel like for you, Steve, when you were not gaming, was it purely because of resources? Like there's no other option, or was it that you just weren't like super plugged in? Like, well?
I think it was mostly because of resources, but I do wonder if maybe it was also because, something I should have mentioned earlier is that, I have a lot of friends who game now and a lot of people I talk to in this kind of community of playing games. And I think I was less so connected, like you just said, in the past. So there were a few people in my life who were prodding me on. That's real. Like, it didn't matter if I hadn't played the latest and greatest because I didn't really know anybody who was playing the latest and greatest whatever. So I was like, whatever, I don't care. Whereas now I'm like, man, 10 years ago I wouldn't have cared to be like up to date with whatever new game just came out. But now I definitely feel that pressure because all my friends pick it up instantly and, play it in the first 48 hours. And I'm just like, oh, I'll get around.
And there's all the trailers and the directs and like, so much hype around games these days.
FOMO's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's FOMO. It's hype. It's just being plugged. It's just, there's an element of experiencing it with people, not just with yourself.
True.
And we've talked about this before. Like I'm definitely more of a solo gamer, or I have been traditionally, but the community, especially you two numbskulls, has drawn me has drawn me into playing games alongside and like with people.
That's real. So I want to touch on that for a second. But Kyle, have you ever had a drought like in your gaming life, like where you're just like, I haven't played for like a considerable amount of time, where you actually noted like, man, I haven't played anything, or just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say towards in college and a couple of years after, I just didn't have a whole lot of time because I was getting my career started, trying to find a job, trying to move out of my parents' house. Like there wasn't the time. And I think that's when my mindset started to shift, because before that, even in college, and especially in high school, I just had a surplus amount of time. And so it really was like I used games to kind of fill that space. But then my mindset shifted to where spending the time on games at that point wasn't bringing value any more than it was like decreasing my stress. Because right now it's definitely a stress reliever in further into adulthood. But at that time, like I was really starting to understand, what we're talking, being more intentional about my time then. And so I would say that I had a drought, but I didn't really even realize it, I guess, because it was more of a passive thing that kind of naturally occurred. Because when I lived with my sister, especially for a couple, it might have been a whole year, but I had just a little room in her apartment, and I don't even know if I had a TV in there, but I didn't have a console, and I was getting up at 4:00 to go work in a plant and then getting home around 7 and wanting to just pass out. So it was months of that. I really didn't even have the desire to play games. And so I didn't even, wow. Now you got me thinking about that because I didn't realize. But yeah, I did. It was a significant drought. And then I had, once I met, you guys and started to get more plugged in to gaming communities within the last couple years is when I guess, started to open up to new gaming experiences. Mm-hmm. And then I think the last few years, especially with multiplayer just being integrated into everything.
Yeah.
It's almost hard not to play anything now.
You really got me thinking because you're talking about college, and me and Steve went to the same college, and one thing about our college was that it was a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like a lot of homework, a lot of tests, a lot of like assignments, a lot of group stuff, a lot of reports. And then there's the difficulty factor as well. So it was easy to get like overwhelmed by work and life and stuff, even though that was like our only thing that we were doing really, right? School. And then for us, we were also like involved with our church. But, and at that time I was also breakdancing. I was leading the breakdancing club and I was like competing, like going to jams. Competing is a way to say it. But, like I was going to practices, I was doing all this stuff, but I always found time for games. I always did. I played Mass Effect 2 and 3 in college. Whoa. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, I've wanted to start over Mass Effect because it's such a great game. It's one of the best. Like, I've never put it in my top 10 per se, but I think it's in my top 10. Like, it's like in my heart somewhere. I just never think about it. But like, I don't know how I did that. Like, but now I can't even consider, like, I'm like, man, I can't imagine investing the amount of hours that I did. But I guess in college you have more time than you realize, right? Or
absolutely.
Or when you're younger in general, before you like get more responsibilities. And I will say this, and the big thing that I think is the differentiator is that I think something y'all both noted is that gaming is very communal. And I've never thought about it, but a lot of the things that has motivated me to keep, like, of course I have my personal relationship with gaming and I love games and watching trailers and keeping up with what's going on. But it's always been communal. What always keeps the spark going is somebody saying, oh, have you played X game? Like I picked up Triangle Strategy recently, and I don't think I would have bought it if it wasn't for the Discord channel, right? Like Yandev. That we have. Because it is the kind of game. Yeah, shout out to Yandev, my boy Yandev. And I still haven't finished it. I actually was about to boot it up this weekend. But like I'm at literally the last section of it. But it's like when somebody tells me about a new game, oh man, I gotta play it, and you can kind of have that moment. And I feel like the same way when I had a drought in gaming was when I was so there's two times that I play games: when I'm like bored and or have a lot of time and like in a solitary situation, so it like fills the gap, or when I'm like with people and it's now thinking about it, I'm like, oh, like when I wasn't playing games, I wasn't bored. I was solitary for the most part, but I didn't have time. But once I moved in with Steve, it became a communal thing again, Yeah. And I picked it right back up and really haven't had a drought since. It's kind of continued to be communal,
I'm thinking about my drought and I'm like, okay, I played a lot of like indie games on my old decrepit laptop. I played like Hyper Light Drifter. I played like Braid and a couple other games like that. Portal isn't an indie game, but Portal's probably one of the only... That's not true. Well, anyway, yeah, I played a lot of like single player, out of time games. Games that came out way before it. All the Supergiant games, Bastion and Transistor. I played during that time. I played I played Dishonored. I remember it was... that's how I know that this was a matter of hardware. Because I did play Dishonored. I actually played Dishonored twice, back to back. But it was on my friend's PlayStation 4. Just because he lived with me and I was like, I have access to this.
I'm going to indulge.
Yeah. Gotta indulge. I tried Destiny. Didn't stick. Too much time.
Oh, Destiny.
That game's a time sink.
Yeah. It was fun for a while.
It's not bad.
For a season.
For the season.
You got me thinking about the community aspect too, though, because so there was a game that I did play in college, and it was probably the only game. So I started to play League a little bit, but then towards the tail end of college, whenever I had time to play a game, I was usually on Champions Online.
Oh yeah, you told me about that game.
Yeah, and that was pretty much my go-to because it kind of scratched the same itch that Fortnite does now, where there was somebody I knew or people that I knew that were like always be on. There were things I could do on my own if I needed to, and you can pop in and pop out. You know, I could get on there for 30 minutes and feel like I accomplished something. And then during the summers is when I would play through like the Assassin's Creeds and those really long form games. I think that's kind of what held me over too. Was those summers where I kind of binge, if you will,
the AAA games. A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, like, it's interesting because I assume, like, I didn't grow up an only child. So I wonder if I was a gamer as an only child, how I would view gaming now, right? I kind of always played it with my siblings, kind of, sort of. Like, we had a 64, so there was, there's so many multiplayer games, Mario Kart, Hexen, Armorines, just kidding. All these other games that just kind of Turok, like games that kept us playing together, and even games that weren't multiplayer, we played them together, right? I think I might have mentioned this, but Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, I think quite a few RPGs, Xenogears, Xenosaga, a lot of RPGs, Chrono Cross. Ooh. I never played those games myself. I just watched my brother play them. My older brother and Rob, shout out to Rob, the boy Rob.
Rob.
They would play them together, and I would just be a spectator. But to me, it was like I was playing the game. Like, I felt like I was making the same decisions. I was determining what the level up, the tree structure, the materia. And so to me, games have always felt very communal as like by standards. So even like when I played God of War, I kind of almost played it so that my wife could watch it from time to time, And when I play a game that like is just purely myself, I kind of get bored for whatever reason. Like if it's not a game that anybody's like, I don't know, I just stop playing it, like, or it's not worth it. So
that's a fair point. You bring up an interesting idea about the whole spectator idea. Like it makes me think of what modern day streaming is. And so I'm curious about if there's like a connection between, because when I grew up, I didn't have that. I didn't have an older sibling that I'd watch play games. It was kind of in the opposite. So I was the youngest in my house, but I was also the most proficient at games. But it was very seldom that they would watch me play. And when they did, they'd say, "Oh, he's really good at that, aren't you?" And then they'd walk out the room. Or we'd play together sometimes. But and so I'm just curious about, I guess, if that's kind of scratching a similar itch for people who watch. It's like, I don't want to play this game myself. I don't have the capacity to play myself. I won't be as good as the person playing. What any of those things that you kind of feel when you're watching your older sibling play. It's like, oh, you're so impressed by what they're doing. Like, I wonder if that has grounds in streaming too.
The watching the shit, because Let's Plays kind of before streaming became big.
Yeah,
I feel like Let's Plays became big, and then streaming became big. It was like, oh, let's play Ocarina of Time, and you just watch somebody play it. Sometimes without commentary, sometimes with commentary.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time, and this definitely, Kyle, where I was really big into Super Replay, which was Game Informer's thing where they used to play the entirety of games, and.
Overblood.
Shout out to Overblood, and I never thought about it, but you got me really thinking deep now. Like, did they remind me of my experience playing with my siblings? Like, it's
maybe.
Like, because for me, I like streamers, I can't really watch. Like, I don't know, it doesn't interest me. But for some reason, Super Replays and Replays interested me because I was watching them play a game that I'd never seen before. They'd be chatting, they'd be talking amongst each other, talking about the game. But I kind of felt like I was there even though I wasn't. Like,
more casual.
Yeah, like it felt not that it was more or less of a commitment, but it just felt more natural. Streaming just seems like I gotta watch you for 8 hours straight or 4 hours, and I need to watch every time you do it. But when I was a kid, we didn't play necessarily games every single day. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
we do your homework,
That's a good point.
You know? So to me, it was always like 2-3 hours. Boom. Cool. Into the next one, you know? Or
A couple days. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because games were kind of built different, I guess. Like, they lent themselves well to the smaller form play.
Mm-hmm.
I think I acknowledge that it is a thing. I have never understood why you would just want to watch somebody play. I think even as a kid, I have a younger brother, and most of the games that we played were either multiplayer games we played together, or they were single player games that we would take turns playing.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I would watch him, but I wasn't like excited. I don't remember being excited to watch him. I remember basically just like being, all right, it's your turn. Now it's
And you
my
walk
turn.
off and get a snack or something. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
did you die yet?
An act of contrition, like, yeah, take it. Just
I did watch him play, but I also remember, I don't know, maybe I'm coloring my memory, but I think I remember feeling like sometimes I wouldn't want to watch him because if it's a story-based game, I don't want to experience the story through him. I want to experience it myself first. But yeah, I just like, I would rather not know what happens in a game than watch somebody play it, generally. I think there's a few games that I've been tempted, like, hey, I'm never going to play this.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. I would rather not know what's going to happen, not know what happens in a game in the hopes that in the future I will play it myself and experience it rather than watch it.
So
And then,
that's more avoiding spoilers.
yeah, it's more of what, but it's like, it's to the extent that I will go years and years and years without knowing what happens in a game because, or even like reading a wiki, you know, like I'm that way about everything.
Yeah.
experiential. You want to experience it yourself.
There's a few games I've been tempted, I can't think of them now, where I'm like, I'm never going to play this. I might as well just know what's going on just to enjoy what semblance of story I can glean from the, you know, the playthrough or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But yeah, that's it. Like I don't like watching people play.
A game that you might play. It's interesting because that's how I feel about Kingdom Hearts. Like, I've yet to play Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, 3, except for that weird card game I think I've told y'all about. But
I remember that.
I've more or less avoided most Kingdom Hearts videos, explanations, theories, deep dives, anything, because somewhere in my heart, I feel like one day I'm going to play Kingdom Hearts. I feel like the older I get, the less likely that's going to happen. But I don't know.
Kingdom Hearts is a big series.
There's a part of me who's like, I gotta play it. I still remember the commercial. When you walk away. You know, it's like, there's something in me. But other games.
Let me tell you how neurotic I am. I have basically beaten Hollow Knight, right? I have gotten, I think, I've gotten like the decent ending, but I was not able to get the good ending, which, because I can't beat the secret final boss. And I refuse to watch this video that I've had in my watch list for literally years about like the civilization and lore of Hollow Nest. Even though I know what the boss is, I've like fought him, and I have a good idea of like what it means to beat him and like what happens. But I'm like, I don't want to spoil like the last tiny bit of lore that I haven't.
Crazy.
I can get behind. I mean, it makes sense. You're so close. Like,
I'm so close. But I like restarted the game.
Oh,
and I'm not sure. I like if you guys have seen me play in the last year, like it's a different playthrough. And I that time that I almost beat this boss was like when I was still working at IBM.
Wow.
Like, this was years ago.
Wow.
So,
only thing is, you need to make sure you download that YouTube video before it accidentally disappears off the internet forever. And then you're like, no. You know.
Somebody will repost it.
If that happened, I don't think there's any reason it would come down.
Hey, man. Hey. There's videos
you never know.
I've been lost to time. Like, I go to my favorites list, and I know what the video is, but it's been deleted, and I've looked for it, and I'm like, where is it? Like, was the only place that it was stored on YouTube? Like, what? So you never know.
The worst part about finding a deleted video in your playlist is that it doesn't tell you what the video is.
Oh, I know.
All you know is that something is missing.
It's gone.
Some of them I know because I would go through my favorites so often. When early YouTube days, I know the order of my, like, if I was like, I want to watch this particular breakdancing video, I want to watch this particular song, or something from Bobby McFerrin, I know exactly where it was in my favorites list. This is back in the day when I was like,
this is the man who knows when someone's been in his office because his keyboard is askew.
Yeah, I guess I'm that guy. It's interesting because me and my brother was here a few weeks ago when I had my first Muay Thai kickboxing fight and tournament, and we were just talking and reminiscing about the old days, and Marcus was here and another one of our friends, Michael. So we were all just chatting, and me and my brother were talking about this weird thing that we did as kids. So my brother is 5 years older than me. So, he's significantly older than me. And we had an N64 and we had WCW versus NWO. And anybody who's played that game was raw. It was that was when I was big into wrestling, and man, everybody that I cared about was in that game, right? And my brother was also into wrestling at that time, I believe. So we would play that game, and 90% of the game is you're playing against computers,
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, me and my brother would play against each other, when we first got it. But what happened is we used to play that game so much, we eventually started playing modes that average people probably weren't playing. So one of the modes was a tournament bracket, and you could set up a tournament with 32 people or something like that.
Yeah.
But you could select who was players and who was CPU. And the thing about it was that you could skip the CPU matches, technically, I think, but we wouldn't skip them. What we would do is we'd actually let the fights play out, but we'd walk away from the TV. So it would be hours of CPU battles going on as it goes through the brackets until it was one of us. And then we would just murder that CPU player instantly because we were so good. But
we fought so hard.
Yeah, and it would be so odd. It was kind of like a weird TV show. We'd walk in, we'd be like, yo, Sting is fighting Rey Mysterio. Yo, this fight is getting hype. And it was the CPU doing stuff whatever. And I was just thinking about what? That's how gaming was deeper to me than just me playing the game. It also created experiences. And it's so hard for me to imagine living a life without gaming some way in my life, maybe I'll have droughts, but I can't imagine walking away from gaming at any point unless I'm physically unable. And even if I was physically unable, I'd probably start looking at accessibility options. There
you go.
Yeah, I did the same thing. We would have these huge tournaments in Smash Bros. Melee. And we would always include a lot of CPUs because there'd only be maybe 4 people at my house playing. And we're that's going to be a really short tournament. You're not going to be able to play very much, especially there's a big skill gap between, people playing. So I would introduce a lot of CPUs to the tournament so that if nothing else, you would fight, a handful of CPUs. And yeah, you could skip the matches, but sometimes we wouldn't. It would just kind of be a screensaver, and we would go off and do something else.
I used to do that in Melee too. There was another game I was over here trying to remember it, but pitting CPUs against each other has always been pretty interesting to me. But the reason why I wouldn't skip them is because I feel like that would somehow weigh the odds of who would win,
change the results.
Yeah. And so I wanted to see it happen in real time so that the computer couldn't cheat me. And, this is
That's a great question. I've never considered
if it changed
how the winner was chosen if you skip the match.
That's a very
I never knew, so I didn't take the risk.
I guess it could have quickly simulated a match and just not play it out.
But the thing is you got to think to yourself, if you're going to simulate a match, say WCW versus NWO.
Oh, it was Dragon Ball. It was Budokai.
Budokai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's just take Budokai. To simulate it, you there's all these things. The CPU is going to do a thing, and the other CPU is going to do a thing, and it's happening at some like I guess it's possible. Like a turn-based strategy game, I could see simulating really quickly through the turns because it's just A B
Yeah.
A B A B. But like simultaneous inputs, like unless I don't know. That's a good question.
I was gonna say, oh well, like the new Smash Bros. Game Ultimate saves replays, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't save a video as the replay. It saves like the actual like inputs and mechanics and stuff.
Yeah, like in physics.
But it's still playing those out in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even think that's comparable. I think you're right. I think that it would be impossible, especially for the GameCube, to simulate 60 FPS physics
in that period of time.
Outside of time or at a faster rate.
Yeah.
So I think it had to just be choosing. If you skip, it had to just be choosing one at random.
Yeah. Just coin flip. Hey, that's one.
Yeah.
So I think Kyle, you played this Mugen or Mugen or Mugen.
Yeah.
Everybody has different ways that they pronounce it. Yeah. But Mugen, and it was basically
Isn't it Mugen? What are the other ways?
Mugen, Mugen,
Who says Mugen? Like, what is that? Isn't Mugen like the actual word though?
Well, so. It's an abbreviation.
It's an abbreviation, so it's not like necessarily Japanese. Like it could be anything, So anywho, it's like for those who don't know what Mugen or Mugen is or whatever, it was basically like a what do you call it? Like
it's a fighting game, right?
Yeah, it's a open
source fighting game, more or less.
Open Street Fighter.
Yeah, like it had like the basic mechanics of a Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, but you could take any character from any other game. And if somebody was willing to go through and like port it in and add the moves and make sure that they worked right, you could just bring in a character. So you could have Goku from one of the like Japanese side fighting 2D fighter games versus like Ryu, or people would make completely different like random characters. Like my favorite
unique character
was the F1 key, because in Mugen, F1 was basically insta-kill the other person. It was like a hotkey. So any move that F1 did was an insta-kill. So like, ooh, you could never beat them. But there were so many because you just go on these random websites, you find people's Mugen lists, and like people made character. I remember one was called Tigre Negro, and Black Tiger. And he'd go, Tigre! Like, it's like this custom character. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up, because this is, I found it when I was in middle school. A guy introduced it to me or high school at the United Way summer program. And then I was playing it in college with friends. And Brawly, Brawly was in the game, and he was absolutely impossible to beat. He would do cutscenes in the middle of the fight. So you'd be fighting him and he'd go, oh, omae wa shinderu. And then he would do a move and then like kill you, right? Like it would pause the game.
Classic.
And what we would do is just pit him versus like other people. So we'd have like 2v1s.
There was a Chuck Norris in there.
I don't think I ever saw Chuck Norris. So we would 2v1 him against other people, right? So one time we had 2v1 Ryu, and Ken versus Brawly. And we simulated this fight so many times. And I think Marcus was there when this happened. But he would always just murder them. But one time, they worked him. They caught him in a combo where he never touched the ground. So it was like Ryu would go, and then Ken would go, catch him with the kicks, and then Ryu would, and it was like crazy. And we were going, it was like watching a live fight between two humans, because we were like, no way, they're going to
Sounds like dogfighting. It sounds like dogfighting, honestly.
Really, like it really was. Like it was crazy. I mean, we weren't betting on it. It was just watching because we were bored in college, and it was crazy. And they beat him, and it was like, victory or whatever. Like they only got one round out of them. And then he just murdered them. He took the rest of the match. But it was the most incredible moment. And we weren't playing the game. Just experiencing it,
When you create a character, is there any way to like change the CPU itself, like the AI, Or would you only create moves?
Yeah,
and, like,
you could change
animations
the AI so the AI could be more like the person who made the character made the AI as well, like their move sets.
Oh wow!
And then
It's pretty deep.
And then some characters were stronger, like fundamentally stronger, like for whatever reason. Like I can't. Maybe I'm wrong about that part, but definitely there were CPU differences. Like
No, yeah, like you can change all those values. I actually did. I was big into Mugen too. I still have it on my computer. I think I have about 515 characters in the one that I have. And yeah, you can go in and change every single one of those values, and then there's a whole like character development kit that somebody created, and so you can rip sprites from another game, put them in there, create unique animations, make the AI, and you can even like down to the reactions that they do, the combos that you wanted to do. It's
I want to make like a Michael Jackson that just dodges all your attacks and moonwalks.
I'm pretty sure there's one. I'm pretty sure it's Moonwalker. Michael Jackson's in the game.
He's in there. And there's a similar character that functions like that though. It's Rick Astley.
Yeah.
He just
the white Michael Jackson.
Never gonna give you up. And you can't hit him. You can't damage him. You can't. The only way you can get out of the match is to like hard stop the game. You can't even go in the menu.
Hilarious.
Wait, how do they stop you from going to the menu?
Like it's so open, man. You can do whatever.
You can do whatever. My favorite was like finding the character select screens and then setting up the configuration for how you want a character to be laid out within the character select. So like when you first start, you might have like 8 characters, and you're slowly trolling the internet, find characters you want, and you're adding them to your roster, and then like putting them in different slots, and then eventually, like Kyle has like 500, like I had like 100 that I wanted to play with, you know? So I might like put them in the roster. It was so great. I still have my Mugen as well. I have it just on a flash drive somewhere. I haven't booted it.
Sure, it still works.
You should start carrying that flash drive around, just in case of emergency.
Just plugging it into random computers.
Yeah,
I used to do that with my GameCube controller. I always had it in my car, just in case.
That's really great.
Just in case.
I mean, you're joking, Kyle, but I had one of those fancy U3 SanDisk flash drives back in like high school. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a flash drive, and it had like a few applications that you could download from the SanDisk website. But basically, the flash drive could host programs, and they would have no effect on your computer. And so I would have games and like some other tools and stuff on a flash drive, and I could like plug it into any school laptop and be playing like Zuma, Marble Launcher or something.
This guy was the portable. He was the arcade.
Yeah, it was a little portable. Program. But yeah, imagine having Mugen on something like that.
Yeah,
and just any computer, just whip it.
Yeah,
out.
I mean, I remember we would put it in like the school computers were so trash though. Like we tried to run it, and I don't think it ever worked, so we just kind of gave up. They were so bad. Like they're worse than my home computer, and I'm like, man,
Oof.
like. How
I could barely run Line Rider.
Like
Line Rider.
Like how are you putting us on this? Like this is disrespectful. So I mean, like I feel like gaming is one of those hobbies that we always. It's just a part of us, like deep embedded. Do you ever think there will ever be a hobby that supplants it, like that's somehow taps into that same part of you and just nope, no more gaming. I just do this hobby. I'm gonna knit. You ever think that's even possible?
You mean for us personally, or like just for the populace?
You personally
for the world?
I don't know, man. I think it's the perfect combination of like. So I don't really watch sports, right? But gaming, like everything we've just been talking about, the aspect of like watching what happens, like that's kind of like sports to me. Is like those memorable moments that you remember and you share with people, and competition and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like the combination of that plus art plus just like fun, like dopamine. Like look at me, I'm beating this puzzle or doing this or that. Like there's just so many reasons. I can't think of any other thing that combines all of those. And storytelling. Storytelling is kind of one of the other aspects of that. Like I read a lot, or I used to read a lot. I'm trying to read more. And I have been. It's been great. But like the same joy that I get from reading a good book, I get from playing some games. Some games. Not all of them. Looking at you, Yick.
I was like, if he calls out Yick, I was hoping you would call out Yick. I was like, please.
No.
I've
never played Yick. I've never played it, so I don't have the right to call it out.
The secondhand gameplay is bad enough.
Deep dive. Yick.
That's a game that I would watch the replay, but then I wouldn't because it just seems like it'd be so boring.
We should stream it together, and then like one of us play it. And I'd be willing to play Yick if y'all would play it with me. Like
we should stream it. We should all share a save file so that we can take turns playing the same game.
Man. Like one day Steve would just delete it. It'd be like, no more.
I don't know what happened.
We'd host it in the cloud, and he'd like somehow manage to like attack the actual server that hosts it. Like
yeah, Google.com just goes down.
It's like I actually like infiltrated their physical servers to make sure that there's no way you could ever recover this.
Major breach in security over Yick.
Man is serving 25 years in prison. Like,
that's actually not a terrible, not Yick specifically, but it's not a terrible idea to try to play a game with the same save file across between all three of us.
That'd be cool. That'd be something cool to do on our Super Agile Bros Twitch channel together. So something you said, something that made me think. You said Yick. Gosh,
stories, the combination of different like fun elements.
Yeah. Book reading. So
books. Yes.
Actually, I never thought about it till you said it just now, but I've been really struggling recently to play single player games.
I feel that.
Most of the games that I play now are like with y'all. So Fortnite, Apex, and then I play games with my wife, like some games together. But to be honest, I've really been struggling playing like games. Like, for example, I think I was telling you I was playing, I was about to call it Overcooked. The roguelike that was like won all the awards at the Keeley Awards. Huh?
Oh, not
Hades?
Oh, I know. Deathloop.
Deathloop.
Oh.
So, yeah,
I still don't call that a roguelike, but whatever.
It's like Deathloop is really fun and great mechanics, and I like what they're doing. But recently, as I was playing it, I made some progress. I picked it back up recently, and I got to a point where the game opened up. It basically told me what the rest of the game was going to look like, and I literally was like, I think this is the last time I'm going to play the game.
Yeah.
Because the game has an interesting story. I think I already know what the story is. Like, just everything they've said, I'm like, I think I already know what's happening here. But the story was interesting. What was compelling me? The gameplay is interesting. Some stuff's a little cheap here or there. But once they told me the thing that I needed to do, I said, man, I could just go read a book.
Can't be bothered.
Like, I'm going to have to do this trial and error. It's essentially trial and error. Like, to really figure out how to do this right. And then eventually, it's kind of Hades-ish, where you got to like essentially do a series of things back to back in order to end the loop. It's not really a spoiler. It's just like, that's kind of what they've been getting at.
It felt more like Hitman from what I was reading.
Yes, in the sense that there's like these people that you need to like get rid of. But there's this idea
but it's like it's like a puzzle game, right? Like Hitman isn't about killing people. It's about solving the puzzle of the level in order to pull off the hit in a specific way.
Yeah, I would say it's more like Dishonored, because I guess they're made the same studio, right?
Oh,
right.
Yeah, they are.
Well,
certainly, yeah. It's definitely going to be it's going to be very similar
in the sense that that you're figuring out how to approach the level. But the big thing is that you need to do these certain things sequentially in a period of time to basically accomplish a certain task. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, I know what I need to do. And I know what it's going to take. And I was like, nope. And I just went and read a book. like.
What'd you read?
I was reading Dune. Well, listening to Dune. Finished that. Then I started listening to
audiobooks.
Red Rising. I finished that. I'm now listening to Ender's Game. So,
Oh, snap.
so
This man going through all the classics.
Come on,
those are the ones I can get from the library without having to wait 12 weeks on hold.
Yeah,
to get it.
bro. I'm wait. We mentioned recently the Abhorsen trilogy on our Facebook because our bud sent us a photo of him wearing a shirt, one of our shirts.
Shout out
and
to Simon.
To Simon, and you could see that series in his photo, and I was like, oh, and that sent me down a rabbit hole. I spent the whole next workday reading the wiki about the books that I've already read, just trying to like re-experience the lore. And I immediately went to my library's website and I was trying to pull those books down, and they were on hold. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Who's reading these right now?
Yeah. All really good books are like on hold, especially if it's audiobooks. Like this, like there's like 18 people waiting for 3 copies. So I'm like,
does your boss listen to our podcast? Because now
I sure hope not.
You spent a whole day doing what?
you just
really, it was really my whole lunch break on that day. Because we didn't have like a group lunch that day.
Lunch break happened to be 8 hours that day.
No, I was in the office. I could not have been reading.
Have you worked at IBM? Have you been in those offices? I've 100% people on a.
I have worked at IBM in the past. This is not.
I've 100% seen people have a 8-hour lunch break. They come in and they did no work.
Straight to the lunchroom.
Not me, man. I never had those days. I was the.
I didn't even bring their computer.
The perfect child, but I still had to actually work.
No computer. They just talking to people. They go walk downtown. Come back. Hey, y'all want to get lunch? Go find.
I was always terrified that somebody would walk up behind me at my desk and see me not working in that moment. This was like my first big boy job, so I didn't really know what the expectation was for minute to minute working.
Yeah, you got to find that angle, that perfect desk, especially since you can move desk.
Yeah,
that like.
Bro, I was in a bad
nobody
desk.
could walk behind you, and nobody could approach you without like a few seconds of like tab change.
You can see him.
Not only was I on the edge of the row, but I was like there was like a corner right behind me. So anyone who came down the hallway would round this corner with no warning. Mm-hmm. It was bad.
Hey, what you watching?
What you watching? People love doing that. Or my favorite is I'm actually doing work, and somebody who's like a higher up is talking to me, or like in the room now, like especially when we were in the Agile space. And somebody would come in and be like, hey, you still watching that video or whatever? And I'm like, bro, you just sold me out. Like,
Get out.
But yeah.
So you read a book.
Yeah. So I was just saying, in an interesting way, I almost feel like what used to be my drive for single player games is now just starting to evolve into reading or listening to books, because reading books is a little bit too active for me right now, and I have too much ADD. Like I can't like read. Like
why I can't do it either.
Very honestly, like I just can't read a page in a book and not read 10 lines and be like, oh, I got to go back and read it again. But
audio just wander off.
You know what I'm saying? But an audiobook keeps my mind completely absorbed. I could be doing something else, but I'm completely listening. And I feel like games used to do that for me. I'm in the moment, I'm experiencing it, single player. And I think the reason why single player games are less appealing is because I play Deathloop. I can't really talk to y'all about it. And so I'm like, I might as well read a book that I'm not going to talk to anybody about anyway. Like I'm not going to talk to you about Deathloop and the happenings between this character, Juliana, and Cole, and this and that. Like, y'all don't.
Who?
So
you don't talk to Shailene about interesting moments in the games you're playing?
Shailene would just look at me like,
boy.
I definitely will tell. I'll like stop what I'm doing and tell Keisha about what just happened, and she's like, okay.
She's like, oh, I gotta go in this other room. Hold a second, and she just.
But think about it, right? Like, I mean, if it's a gameplay moment, like, oh, and then I kicked the grenade and it went up and it hit me in the head. Like, she definitely doesn't care about that. But I mean, I'm playing Final Fantasy Remake, and I don't want to spoil anything because no one spoiled it for me, and I appreciate that. But like, there's some really intense human moments, and there's a lot of good voice acting in this
story
game.
Beats.
Yeah, and so like, if you're listening, Joseph, Yeah, I'm still
Hey.
playing this game. I'm still on that tip from many years ago that you told me to play this game. I've been working through it slowly, but yeah, there's like people dying, people dealing with loss and grief and rage and indignation at like the world, and sometimes I'm just like overcome after a scene, and I'm like, I got to tell Keisha about this, and I'll just tell her like, yeah, this guy was like, doing this, and then this happened, and then everything exploded, and they're like human moments, and it doesn't matter if I read them in a book or played them in a game. Like to her, it's the same. So I can tell her that stuff.
Yeah, you're still telling the story.
Yeah.
I think
I talked a lot about God of War with her. I was like, yeah,
I think
this thing happened.
I can do that if it's a game she's been like. God of War is the perfect example, like you just mentioned, because she would walk in as I'm going through different moments, and she'd be like, "What'd she say? Atreus? That's his name, right? Atreus."
Mhm.
Yeah.
She'd be like, "Atreus is such a jerk,"
Right.
or he's
He
like,
was a
"He's
brat.
such a kid," So she'd be watching the moments. So if she's missed some story beats, I would like fill her in. So the next time she sits down or watches me, she knows what's going on. But if I'm playing Deathloop, like, first of all, Deathloop is not as strong of a story as God of War.
Yeah,
If
that seems to be my
Um,
takeaway.
but yeah. But games can have so much story, right? Like, so it can be a little intense, especially if she's not paying attention,
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be hard to relay because some of the things, I guess, that you do them versus watch them happen in games, and so kind of really getting the point across of how that moment was is sometimes difficult. 'Cause I'm playing through the new God of War right now, and sometimes, yeah, trying to say, I guess, how intense a moment felt, because I mean, you could say it's just button presses, but it's just like when you're interacting with the story in a way, I don't know, man, it's just deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was even telling her like, yeah. So I've been playing Final Fantasy, and I'm realizing that like, dang, a lot of my reason to play this game isn't necessarily like I love the gameplay. It's pretty cool, but like, minute by minute, most of my time is spent watching cutscenes or like walking somewhere, and I'm fine with that because the cutscenes are so entertaining, and the gameplay is really fun. But I don't feel like I'm missing out by watching the cutscenes. But yeah, I'm like, I really am in this for the story. Maybe more so than I would have been in other games. Whereas in God of War, I do love the story, but I'm definitely 100% in for the gameplay as well. I'm excited to play the new God of War eventually.
Yeah, I think
good. I recommend.
I think the thing that games I don't feel I could ever get anywhere else is feeling the feedback of an action without an immense consequence, so I can have fun and experiment with things. Like, for example, let's just take Fortnite. We've all been playing together, and I think Fortnite gives me a little bit of the competition, right? Like something fun, right? Like we're kind of competing to win. We win, we lose. Like what was it? Yesterday we got like 4 dubs, 3 dubs, 3 wins, which is pretty good. But it's like a place where we can play and experiment and try things and goof off with a little bit of like tension,
Yeah,
but like
stakes.
Yeah,
Slight stakes.
Yeah.
Low stakes. Yeah.
Low
Someone was just talking about stakes earlier. I was thinking that, but I can't remember what it was now.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something you can't really get in many other experiences. Like I can't really I'm really into Muay Thai, right? But if I'm gonna like compete, not that I'm not worried about getting knocked out or necessarily hurt or injured, but it's like a physical task, and the consequence of losing is like you lose, like you're tired, you didn't win. There's a lot of effort put forward, but I could play a little bit of Fortnite and, it doesn't really change my physical state, or maybe it'll change my mental state if I was getting trolled or something. But like, I just think that it's a low barrier of entry, and there's a lot of benefit that I get from that experimentation and competition side of it,
And to answer your question from earlier about if I think it would ever be replaced, it would have to be something with immense value in those ways, because it's really accessible, to play a game. You don't have to go anywhere. As you were saying, a lot of the different things, I guess, as you would do that would be as interactive. I mean, you could go outside, as people say, just go outside and have fun. But it's just like you're playing with people that are thousands of miles away. Whenever I'm online with you guys, and so it's like it's not the same as if I wanted to go play football outside, and not all the time do I have the opportunity. If the only opportunity I have to do something at my leisure is 9:30 p.m. and going outside and throwing something.
You're going to jail now. You're going to jail now.
It's suspicious to say the least. And so just having it readily available all the time, that adds a lot of value. The story and interactivity that we've been talking about, able to get, you could watch a movie. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You can read a book but I think those are different experiences holistically. And so it's not like they replace games or games replace those. They kind of sit alongside them. But I mean, in the moment you have a different affinity, I guess. It's like you read a book because maybe your eyes are tired or something. You don't want to look at a screen. You watch a movie because maybe you don't want your hands to be involved, or you want to wash dishes while your eyes are engaged. You play a game so you can have all the sensory elements, overloading you at once. And so I think they work hand in hand in that way. So I don't see how it could get replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've been thinking about what you said about, I could just read a book. And my first thought when you asked could you replace this was no. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I could at least maybe replace the single player games.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my favorite, but those are the easiest to replace with books. And it would be books for me. It wouldn't be, it might be movies. It would probably be books though. I used to read a ton. I could probably easily go back to that. I would miss the dopamine and the spectacle of video games.
For sure.
But I think a lot of the other... I would also miss the specific ways of... we talk a lot about game mechanics and art and music and direct... all these different elements that make up a game. And I've kind of made it part of my identity to be invested and interested in those things. I would miss all of that. But books do have similar elements, similar, I guess you could say, mechanics that I could potentially get into instead. I could be a book guy, talk about, the author's voice and diction and, the style of character development. I don't know. I know a little.
He's a writer,
Yeah, I once wrote a paragraph. But
I read your short stories.
I have written words.
This man said short stories plural as if he has ever seen more than one.
Oh, was it just one? Oh, somebody else shared one. That's what it was. I thought you did share multiple.
I shared the little goofy horror story I wrote about working at IBM.
His one story used a lot of plural words, so it felt like a lot of stories.
And he kept saying long story short throughout.
My bad. He got that from me. My bad.
I learned it from the best.
My bad.
So yeah, I think I could replace it. And it'd probably be cheaper too. Heck, man. I mean, the libraries exist. Yeah. You don't have to own an expensive machine to run a book.
I'll say this though. One thing that I think makes storytelling in games something that's hard for me to replace is the agency that you do get within an experience. Like a book, when you read it, you get a little bit of the imagination, right? You don't know what anything looks like unless the author themselves puts some sketches or something in there, right? So you kind of make up the scenery, like, oh, the character is standing in a dark room. Whoa, what's that dark room look like? You put it in your brain. But in a game, they give you all that, so you lose the imagination. You get to kind of instead experience the wonder. But the agency, for example, my favorite one is just kind of stupid, is one of my favorite games, Dead Rising. And, Capcom is just a goofy company in general. True. One thing that I've always thought was compelling to me and why I sometimes will listen to the story beats, even though I've heard it multiple times, is that Frank, the main character, can wear different clothing. And you can kind of just dress him as he is. So sometimes I might just put certain clothes on him because that's just what he happens to be wearing. And like, or I might accidentally put clothes on. Like you could put a Lego head on his head. So just imagine a very serious cutscene with Frank in cut off like Daisy Dukes with a Lego head and like a like lumberjack shirt on, wearing like space boots, right? And somebody's like, he's going to kill my family, you know. You know, and it's like this stupid thing, but it's kind of just like goofy, like. And I don't know, it makes the story feel different.
Or naming your character I farted, so every time someone refers to you, you say I farted.
Yeah, it's like you have a little bit of agency in the story, but also in general, there's also that games like Skyrim or The Witcher or whatever, you literally can dictate some of the story.
Yeah.
So you can have a different experience every time you play it. But in a book, the story is a story. In a TV show or movie, the story is a story, you know? So I think there's something special about the interactive storytelling elements that games have, you know?
Yeah, I would have to give that up. You're right. There's not really a replacement for it.
Yeah, because you don't have a choice whenever you're interacting with, I guess, a story that's already, like, it's happening, it's unfolding in front of you, I guess. And so, yeah, definitely something that games bring to the table. I mean, there are interactive movies and stuff now, but I mean, like a lot of those you can almost argue that they're just games. But like, what are they called? FMV games?
I don't even
know if they have a name. It's just interactive.
Well, that's what they call the old school games, like Night Trap and stuff. The full motion video game.
Full motion video.
Nowadays,
I don't know if they have a name. They just call them interactive,
probably
like series or something.
I used to do the same thing. I've done the same thing in Spider-Man. He has like a bunch of costumes, and they render the costume in all the cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be like, you know, I'd be talking to Mary Jane about my dying aunt or something, and I'm wearing like a red hoodie and a trash bag over or a paper bag over my head.
Yeah.
Or even better, I'm like, you know, coming into the apartment to like, again, to talk to Mary Jane and do, you know, have about some serious business and our relationship. But I look like Ghost Rider, like there's like blue flames and it's like rendering the blue light in the room. So I'm like, I'm lighting up the room.
Oh, that's actually kind of nice.
Like, oh, cool. But they're talking so serious.
But they're so serious. It's like not mentioning the fact that I am like a demon, you know? That was cool. Yeah. Also, shout out to the Miles Morales costume. I think they rendered it in like 12 frames per second. It's like cell shaded. It's super cool.
I was like 12 frames per second, but now it makes sense when you think about it. Into the Spider-Verse. That's pretty cool. Yeah, cool. I still need to play the Miles Morales version of the game.
Same.
It's like just sitting there taking space on my PS5, and I'm just deleting other games around it. Like whenever I can have storage issues, you know. So one of these days, you know, there are experiences that I feel like whenever I say to myself, man, one of the, I don't know if y'all have this struggle, but have you ever been like mildly tired, but also like have enough energy to do something, but you can't really figure out what you want to do? So you spend a lot of time thinking about like, oh, like maybe I should watch a Netflix series, or I could play a game, or oh, I could go on a bike ride, whatever thing you do.
I was just thinking about that.
You know, like you get in these funks. It's like, and I end up doing almost nothing, or doing one random thing that I don't really care to do, just to do something. Mm-hmm. And I feel that I have those times more often in my life than maybe in the past. And I hate it because to me, I have so many games that I want to play, and like I'll turn on my PS5, I'll see Miles Morales, I'm like, but I don't know if I'm feeling it. And but I feel like I'll never lose that longing for my backlog. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what life throws at me, if I have the rest of my days of free time feel like those listless days where I can't play anything, I feel like I will always have the desire for my backlog. Oh my goodness, I want to play Mass Effect, you know, special edition, play all through. Oh, I want to play Miles Morales. Oh, I want to play God of War Ragnarok. Oh, you know, Assassin's Creed again, you know? Like and I feel like that's what's going to always keep me as a gamer, that longing. You know?
Yeah. What's wild to me is that if the game industry just ground to a halt tomorrow and no more games were released, I would probably have enough games. Let's say games and books. I would have enough games and books to only do that
for a lifetime.
Like just my backlog to. I don't own that many books, I guess. Like I would have to rent them, but like in my I should read these, in my head bookshelf, I'd probably be fine for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Of no more releases.
I think longer.
And that's not accounting for replays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like if it was replays, I would be good for life. Like there's so many games that I already own, I'd probably be good.
Yeah.
And it kind of bums me out because I'm like, I want the freedom to replay my games. Like I want to come back to them and be able to enjoy them like old friends. Because the ones that I've done that with, I usually really like it. But recently, it's like hard for me to replay games because I'm like, there's so many new games.
Exactly.
It feels indulgent and it's not as fun the second time because I'm like, I'd rather be doing the other things I, signed up for.
The way that new games are being handled these days, though, it's hard to determine, I guess, what it's going to look like in the next couple of years because so many games are moving towards like live service. Like I don't know how many times, how more. I mean, somebody said this before that, single player games are going to die out. They're just a fad or like multiplayer games taking over. But I'm really curious, like if games like God of War are still going to exist in the next, decade, just because of how much money the games that it stands next to make year over year, hand over foot. And if, game publishers being businesses as they are, will pull out of single player experiences altogether and just make live service games. I mean, Unity, not Unity, but
Epic.
Indie developers will likely pick up the mantle, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, what indie developers make as far as single player and story driven experiences it's a toss up.
You know what drives me crazy? I think it's like, shoot. I was just reading something about Nintendo, but it was basically comparing the games that Nintendo makes to other AAA single player experiences. And it's like, yeah, like Pokemon outsells God of War, even though this new Pokemon game is like
it's
completely just bugged out the wazoo. I mean, to be fair, I do have friends who are playing it and they're saying, yes, it is extremely buggy, and yes, it performs terribly. Like it's embarrassing how bad it is, but I'm still having fun. So go figure. Yeah, it seems to be fun. But you're still comparing it to a game like God of War that, even though I haven't played the new one, I've played the previous one, and that's like a top tier game.
Yeah, yeah.
And it probably performs exquisitely, right? Like it's it's a much more refined, careful experience that is also a ton of fun, and yet it gets outsold by garbage optimization Pokemon
half-baked.
Half-baked,
stronger
rushed
IP.
out.
I just have a feeling that we'll never lose certain elements of the gaming industry because, kind of like you said, Kyle, like the indie side will always pick it up. But also, even on the AAA side, I think that as much as the gaming industry is a business, it's still like majority passion driven.
That's
like
true.
the best forms of the gaming industry are kind of like frivolous in the sense of how they approach things. Like think of even God of War. God of War could probably make as much money as it does and probably could pull back on some things. Like, sure, let's like take out as many side quests, or let's remove this part of the character storyline, because people would play it and it would be fun and they would enjoy it. But it's truly art, right? Like you were saying, Steve, like it's truly an outpoint. It's like music. It's like, oh man, now we got all this hippity hop, and now it's like, it's just going to keep happening because there's just people inspired to create, So yeah, I think it'll change. I think there'll be a lot more live service games. But once again, as we mentioned in the Battle Royale episode, like they're just difficult to make and they are just a lot more expensive, because you always have to have servers running and all that trash. So I think that there's I don't see a world where, if gaming still exists, that we don't still have single player, multiplayer, live service, battle royale. Like I feel like everything will just continue It'll just be more of it, you know?
I'll second that. And I think there's two other reasons. One is that I think those games, like the epic single player AAA experience games, I think that they prop up the other games as well. Like the existence of those games brings attention and eminence to the maybe less epic but more profitable live service games. And then on a similar note, I think that a lot of companies, not a lot, out of the three major console producers, all of them have some sort of subscription service now that gives you access to games. And I think that can almost take the place of the live service profit stream, because think about it, like maybe God of War doesn't sell as many copies, but the existence of God of War will prop up the PlayStation subscription, like the value of it. In general. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so people will be paying, like Netflix, people will be paying every month, even though you may only play God of War once. That will, have kind of an indefinite, probably more so than its actual cost for the game, value to the subscription to the company per person.
So like the long-standing impact.
It's a system
like
seller.
the game costs $60. If someone buys it, you get $60. But if the game convinces somebody to get the subscription, you might get, $80 or $90 from that person just during the time that they play the game on that subscription.
Yeah, no, it's that like a system seller concept, right? Like you have one game that sells a system,
the subscription seller,
and then all the publishers go, "Oh, like there's now millions of these systems out. I'll make more games for this system." It's kind of funny because when I went looking for God of War, I was with the wifey, and we were in the. First of all, I don't know why we went to Best Buy, and every Best Buy employee happened to be in the PlayStation 5 aisle for some reason. It was very strange. We thought it was blocked off. Like, oh, we can't. They were like, oh, we're just standing here. And so
someone got fired.
I asked the guy, I said, hey, do you have any copies of God of War? Because I see it on the shelf. And he said, hey, let me check. And he looked and he's like, oh, we don't have any copies here. He's like, but we do, for some reason, have the PlayStation 5 God of War bundle. He's like, yo, man, this thing is awesome, man. I might buy this. And I was like, yo, I might buy that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm over here considering getting a PS5 that I definitely am not going to use. Just because God of War bundle, like I'd have the God of War skin, like, that's a system seller. And that allows for the other games to exist, like you're saying. Like, it's, they won't go away. They're system sellers. That makes sense.
Yeah, and just by the nature of live service games, because they're intended to be on all platforms with all the crossplay, they'll never have, or it's unlikely that they'll have that sort of impact. And then... And then we still have, and I don't know how long those will stick around, but like exclusives too. A lot of those do tend to be single player experiences. Because they more show off the hardware, and it's easier to show off, what your system can do in a solo experience where people can go at their own pace, smell the flowers, all that jazz. Watch a movie for the most part.
True.
So I think there's a lot of use cases outside of, I guess, just the games themselves. But I realized I never answered your question though about single player experiences. And you guys were mentioning, I guess, we were just talking about getting, I guess, into starting new games. I had a comment about that. Maybe that's what it was. Mm-hmm. But I think it takes a considerable amount of effort to like start up a new single player game, especially if it's going to be a long one. I've tried in the past couple of weeks, actually, to start some from my backlog. Have either of you guys ever played, what is it, the Mighty 101, something like that? What is it?
On the Switch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the title.
By Fabulous 101? Is it by Platinum?
I think it's a Platinum game.
I can't remember the name of it, but anyway.
I think it is the Mighty 100 or Mighty 101 or something.
That's what, yeah, that makes sense. But anyway,
it's a weird title.
It's on the PS5. And it was free for something. I don't know where I got it from. But it's a game that's been in my backlog for a while. And I was in that funk you were talking about, Brad, the other day. Yeah. Where I didn't know what to do. I really didn't feel like starting God of War. You guys weren't around, so I wasn't going to play any Fortnite. I don't really watch like movies and TV. And so I went to my backlog. I was like, oh, this game looks like it won't be too much. And then I started playing just a little bit of it, and the mechanics started to grow. They started showing me all these upgrade systems. And that's where I felt like I made a choice, you know. And the choice I usually make with these like single player games is how much of an investment is it going to be?
Exactly.
And it seemed like it was going to be like, I do not want to be in this game for the amount of time that they are prefacing. And so I uninstalled it immediately.
Wow. I wish I had that not resilience, man. I don't know. I wish I had that state of mind. I don't ever make a decision. I'll just keep trying to play it because I like to finish what I start. But eventually I might finish it, you know, and be like, yeah, I finished it. But more often, if I don't really want to play it, but I'm making myself play it, I'll just kind of let it languish more and more over time until eventually it's just sitting half opened in my backlog.
I'll tell you, I did that with maybe a half a dozen games this year alone, and kind of, I guess, broke myself down to where now I know what the experience is like going through that cycle of I started a game, it's daunting, but I started it, I want to finish it, and then doing that, rinse and repeating that a couple of times, and I guess the anguish that comes with it, it's like I really don't like feeling like I have to play a game, because then when I do actually go to play it, it's not enjoyable. I'm just waiting for it to be over. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I felt about the Jedi Last Fallen Order. Like, for me, I mean, it was a different experience because I was playing with y'all. But, like, if I were to play it by myself, it would 100% have been a situation where I'm like, man, I'm this far. Let me just finish this trash, you know? For me, I was, like, more excited to continue playing it so I could complain about it with you guys.
Yeah.
But like, there was no intrinsic value. Like, for Deathloop, for example, I just can't, like, in my mind, I'm like, what's the intrinsic value to keep playing this game? You know, like, what am I getting out of it? Like, Fortnite, it's easy. Number one, I get to play with y'all, goof off, have some fun experiences that are shared memorable experiences we could talk about later. And then there's also just the goofiness that is Fortnite, seeing things happen, doing these little, you know, like this, I'm getting intrinsic value out of it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just hard now to play these games where I'm just like, yo, like, this game looks awesome. But son, you know, like, I have so much time in my life and I don't know if I can give you that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It hurts. It literally hurts. Yeah.
You know, I've grouped my games on Steam, and I have a group called Need to Finish for games that I have started playing but not have manually moved to the finished pile.
Oh.
I should probably make another group called Games I Will Not Bother Finishing. Because I feel like that group is starting to swell.
Zombie games.
I'm like, I'm not going to play all this.
Yeah. You
know, the reason I did that is because sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I haven't played this. I should go finish it, and I actually want to. But I think you're right. I think more often than not, I don't know. My thing is that, like, sometimes I feel that way where I kind of have to force myself to play something, but it's not because I don't want to play. It's because it's that initial bump. Like you mentioned it earlier where you're like, you just don't feel like doing anything. Mm-hmm. You want to do the least effort. I'm like, man, sometimes I don't feel like doing anything, but I know that if I play this game, I will enjoy myself. And so I kind of have to force myself to, like, set aside time. But then when I do that,
you have a good time.
I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm happy that I did
started.
that. Yeah. And so there's some games I don't need to do that for. There's some games where it's like, whatever, I have a few minutes, I'm bored. I play solitaire sometimes when I'm waiting for you guys to, like, get ready. You know, when it's time to record an episode. It's so easy. It's on my computer. It takes no effort. And then when I'm like, I don't even have to keep playing. I can just close the window when it's time.
You know.
That's the smallest effort game. My mom got me hooked on solitaire.
Hey, she's a good mom. That's a good mom.
Yeah. I tell her, I'll, like, send her screenshots sometimes. Like, look at this crap I got stuck in. I'm emailing my mother screenshots of solitaire. That's the life I lead.
You're 1997 for real.
I'm a millennial.
He says, I thought I taught you better than that, son.
No, you printed the screen. Like, it prints on the... Did you walk over to it like... like, yo.
Yeah, dude. I'm sending her, like, a cell phone, a 1080p cell phone picture of my screen.
Let me
Blurry.
ask you.
But anyway, I was just to finish up
yeah,
really
go ahead.
quickly. Yeah, I think that there are some games that I have to force myself to do because I want to prioritize playing the games I like, but it can be hard when there's like, I'm bad at prioritizing things, but it can be hard to like get over that initial bump of let me just do something that's going to take a little bit of effort and time.
Yeah. So one of y'all mentioned the pain of replaying a game when there's new games to be played,
Yeah.
and knowing that game is going to take that slotted time that you have in your life to play games, and knowing that you're not going to be able to play a new game because you're playing an old game. So there's a game right now that I have installed on my PS5. It's called Rebel Galaxy. It's like this indie game. It's like kind of trash, but it's so fun to me. It's like a game that I could zone out in. And I played it it was like one of the first games I played when I got my PlayStation 4 because it was like free and I didn't have any games. And it's basically like this. Imagine playing Sea of Thieves in space, but not boring in the sense that like when you're traveling around, you're doing things, and it's a broadside game. So like you're fighting other ships, like you're a vessel in the water.
If Sea of Thieves wasn't boring, it'd be great.
If it wasn't boring, it'd be great. That should be on the box. But like, it's not a great game. Like, it's hard for me to like ever tell somebody to play it. But the problem is, it's just like not good enough that it's hard for me to justify playing it. But I really want to play it. But I know if I play it, I won't play another game like God of War. And I see it every time I get on my PS5. Like, I see it there, like, sitting. And it kind of hurts me a little bit. Because I'm like, oh, I want to have fun, and I know I love this game. But I can't play it because I won't be able to play other stuff.
You just wince every time you start up your PlayStation?
Yeah, and I just see it there. And today I'm like, today I'm going to play it. And I'm like, nah, I should play something else. Or I should do something else. Maybe I should read a book. Like, I don't know if y'all ever have the experience, but there's just certain backlog, replay games that I love, but I just wish I had time to play them and enjoy them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I mean, part of me, I was just thinking this. Part of me wishes that the game industry would just take a break. Like, I've been thinking that anyway because of this whole Pokemon debacle, and like, please, Game Freak, just take like a 3-year break.
Right.
That'll never happen because of the anime and the toys and everything else.
And
but
money.
like,
for your health.
What would be great if they just keep updating the same game with like one team like adds new Pokemon and whatever. But meanwhile, they're working on another game for like 3 years and letting it bake long enough.
basically the like Bethesda model, like just keep one game and keep porting it to other stuff, and like spend the next 5 years building your next game.
You don't even port it. You don't have to port it, but like, include it. I guess you could port it, sure, but whatever. My point is, that's actually not related. My actual point was, I wish that would happen because there's so much I feel like I'm missing out on. If I were to just focus on my backlog, I would miss all the new stuff. But if I get all of, I can't, there's no way to focus on the new stuff. There's too much of it. No matter what I do, I'm going to be missing out on new stuff.
Yeah. So let me ask y'all this question. Like, think about this for a second. Imagine gaming was out of your life, like completely. You weren't let's not say like little mobile games like Solitaire and stuff like that. But I mean, like, you know what I mean? The games that are like hardcore games for us, Fortnite, the God of Wars, console gaming, and Steam games, stuff like that.
Big game.
If those were completely removed from your life, what would you do with that void in your life?
That drive.
Yeah, like what would your life look like?
Did you say a drug?
I said drive.
Oh.
He just like drugs. He already knows. Crack. Yeah. Smoking crack. I'm done.
There's nothing
I
else.
would just fall into sin.
What part of dopamine did you not understand?
Did you not understand?
I am an addict to that sweet, sweet feeling of puzzle solving.
It was.
I would probably have pursued my passions if. No, I'm just kidding.
Dang. I mean, that's kind of halfway true, though. I feel like I would find. I've maybe not. I don't know. I've currently in the mindset of trying to make more time for like creativity. So like over the Thanksgiving break, I was working on, this is barely creative, but I'm still happy with it. I was working on a system to like allow me to quickly deploy my public SSH keys to all of my devices. And then if I lose my phone or my laptop and those keys are invalid, I can quickly like revoke them on all my devices. Like for me, that's fun. You know, I've been working on like a calendar tool to help me stay on track for things, for other things I'd be interested in.
Yeah, bro.
So like there's probably ways that I would spend my time that are more like creative and I don't know, productive. Not like productive in a money making business career type way, but as productive in like the smallest variable, the smallest multiple kind of way.
Don't downplay your creativity, man. And people listening, you neither. Because, hey, it matters. You made it, you know?
Yeah. Hey, I'm happy. I'm downplaying, but I'm definitely happy.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Not very much, but I am proud.
Hey, I'll take anything I can get.
But I think I'd actually be like in the same boat, though. Because as some people know, I have started a business over the last like 2 years. And I went to art school, so I've really been invested in art. And I love like animation and stuff, but that stuff just takes so much time. And I feel like I'd be deeper into that side of things, because a lot of artists that I do follow, especially animators, one thing they do talk about is a similar issue where they do have a backlog of games or they don't play a lot of games. And so one of the ways that they, I guess, appreciate games is more on the art side. But, you know, they're completely just ignorant, not in a bad way, but of how games actually work. And so just being able to, I guess, see the trade-off to, you know, what you decide to spend your time in. Because nobody, as much as we'd all like to, nobody can learn everything. You know, you can't know everything about everything. And so I kind of made the choice, I guess, do I want to experience this thing, or do I want to really invest time in making it and risk not experiencing it quite as much and enjoying it in that way?
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I would be more creative, because to me, like, when I'm creative, like when I say creative, I mean like writing more blogs or making more videos on YouTube.
Maybe say productive instead.
I wouldn't even say productive. You're
producing.
I would probably start doing more things with my hands. Like, I'd probably get into woodworking or something, but I wouldn't do it with the goal to be good at woodworking. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be like, oh, I want to one day sell my woodworking.
So you just have a different hobby.
I would just probably just whittle wood, or I'd get some like, all the money I spent on these consoles, I'd buy some like a miter saw and like, you know, a table saw. And, and I just, because to me, I feel like I'd have to find something that could allow me to be in another place while still being here. And I feel like I've had those experiences, like the smell of wood, just cutting. That smell is like,
oh yeah, sawdust smells great.
Yeah, you know, like that burnt, when you're cutting something, you smell the wood burning as it's also getting cut. It's like, there's something special about that. So I feel like I would get invested in that, or I'd build things or something. I think I'd do more mechanical engineering stuff. Like, maybe like mess around with maybe not my car. I ain't got money like that. But like, I don't know. I think I'd like build objects, like a chair, or I'd like do random things around the house more, you know? Like, I'd have to find some way to kind of like keep my mind busy, but it couldn't be work. Like, it couldn't be something that actually benefits me. Like, it has to be
something that's sufficiently different from work.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'd make birdhouses, because birdhouses serve no purpose, but I wouldn't make like, you know, oh babe, I'm gonna make another.
You just took shots at somebody out there.
No, I think making
Some
birdhouses.
bird is really cold right now in this winter night.
I think birdhouses have as much value as getting dubs in Fortnite. Like,
Okay.
it's just for me. You know,
Wow.
like, and I don't mean no slight, no shade. Like, it's just people have different strokes of things that float their boat. You know, so
Speaking of dubs in Fortnite, what do you think that you would be more invested in Muay Thai
no,
competitively?
no, because the thing is, like, Muay Thai is physical. Like the reason I like Muay Thai is because I feel stronger as a human after it. Like,
Yeah.
not just physically, but like mentally. You know, I feel like I go into the gym, I learn something new, somebody, we work on it. Like, there's no danger in the classes. Like, nobody's punching you. It's just like I feel more proficient at something. And I also feel that I could protect my family better, and I feel stronger. And I know my wife feels more safe around me, that's just how I feel. So I think it's like a completely different part of me. Like,
Sure.
I don't go, oh, should I play games or should I work out for Muay Thai? Like, they're completely different. Like,
They don't conflict.
I meant like the competitive aspects, but I guess you're not necessarily getting it. What you're saying is that you're not finding enjoyment from beating someone up or getting beat up in Muay Thai.
Yes, I definitely like, it's similar to me in breakdancing. I do enjoy the competitive side. That's why I like want to get better, but it's competitiveness with consequences. And so I'm not going to compete as frequently. That's probably a way to put it. So yeah, like, I like that there's no consequence on me failing making a birdhouse. It's just like,
Sure.
didn't get a dub this time. I'll make another birdhouse.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'd probably read more. Like I said earlier.
Books?
Yeah.
Having fun isn't hard
When
if you've got a library card.
AARDVARK. Shout out to the Arthur fans out there.
Was that rhyme from Arthur?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's why I don't know it.
It comes from the same. It comes from the same episode. Jekyll, Jekyll, high, Jekyll, high, die, Jekyll.
Ooh.
Jekyll, Jekyll,
That
high,
song
Jekyll,
went
high.
way too hard, son.
Oh man.
Yeah, I never watched Arthur.
Arthur is, first of all, we got to talk about DW being one of the most savage human beings that has ever existed on this planet. She has said some things that I don't even think like adults could say. Like, she is out of pocket, man. Like,
Out of the mouth of babes. Right?
yeah, she rude. She just rude.
She's ruthless. Oh yeah.
Ruthless, man. It's like, anyway.
So now that you guys have thought through how your life would be, or like what you would spend your time doing or pursuing, if there were no games in your life, do you feel sad that you're missing out on pursuing those things because you do have games in your life? Do you think you're missing out?
So I think no, because those things would be filling the void that not being a gamer would leave. But since I am, I think it would be I would have pretty much the same perspective. I'd be doing those things, but then wondering, if I was actually a gamer, how things would be. I think at least for me, wondering how things would be is always kind of a perpetual thing that I don't think is particularly negative.
That's fair.
So,
well, that's one way to answer. I feel free to answer the same way, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
What I kind of was getting at was, do you think that these other time spenders that you mentioned are like more
valuable?
Yeah, exactly. More valuable, or like a better use of your time. Like, so not necessarily like the grass is greener, but that you would be a better person, more well-rounded, more productive, or whatever.
It's weighing the opportunity cost. Like, and like doing this thing, I can't do this thing. So my thought is, I think one thing is that I fundamentally am an introvert. So I think that gaming has been good for me because I think I wouldn't necessarily get some of the communal aspects that I get from gaming in some other activity. Like, say I got into woodworking, I probably wouldn't do it with other people. You know, like I would just make my birdhouses by myself. I would make my chairs, my benches. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe I'd interact with somebody who does that too, and maybe we do it together. But you know, I feel like there's a part of me that would just do it by myself.
You
I
just
think
become a crazy bird man.
Yeah, I'd be like a hermit. Crazy Birdman. Do you want to see my birdhouses?
I was just waiting for him to do a voice.
You knew it was coming.
It was perfect.
But I think one thing that gaming is, I think it's allowed me to connect with people in ways that I would never be able to in any other capacity. Because even in Muay Thai, I fight people. They punch me, I punch them. There's some camaraderie, but we don't really like talk. Like,
sure.
We don't really talk when we're playing Fortnite. We goof off, but it's just levels of like intensity. And I feel like I have connections with my wife because of Overcooked that I would never have with her if it wasn't for gaming.
Over birdhouses.
I think about that story you told in Journey where like you're playing online with some rando and you guys kind of had a moment where like I don't know, he fell and you like went back to get him or something and you're helping lead him. Or, you know, or the guys in Fortnite where like you'll meet a guy in Fortnite and you'll decide, even though he's not on your team and you're not talking, you'll just decide to like team up and like goof off and hang out.
Yeah.
Like you're having like a poignant moment with strangers that you don't get from punching strangers in the face.
Yeah. And I think any other hobby would probably be not similar in the sense that I would never have those moments. Yeah. Like, I'd have to go out of my way to show people my woodworking. And I feel like there's something nice about the casualness of gaming and also the deep, like how deep it is in the community. Like there's a community, even if we don't play with each other, you know what I'm saying? Like you can go on a forum on Reddit and everybody's like together, you know? Sure, I'm pretty sure this is Birdhouse Reddit, right? But like, I don't know. I just feel I feel like I'm a part of something greater than myself. And as an introvert, I'm not a person who would naturally want to be a part of anything. So I think gaming has made me a better person fundamentally at the core. Of who I am.
Yeah. I think I'd agree
as I was, go ahead, finish what you were thinking.
I was just going to say, it just sounds like, I guess the choice to be a gamer has been less about, I guess, the choice of playing games and more of making a choice to be less lonely.
To some degree. Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up choice. I think that I didn't make the choice. Like, the way I got to where I am now, I don't think was necessarily by choice.
Forced.
I just followed what I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like making the choice to stay invested in this, you know, industry. Or not industry. I'm not part of the industry, but to stay invested in this space.
As a gaming giant.
Right, yeah. As the well-known Shoop. So that's interesting. Yeah, earlier as I was talking and I'm like, yeah, I would probably be more productive and I would like follow my hobbies and I learned this and that. I couldn't help but feel a tinge of like regret, like, oh, you know, how would I be different if I wasn't quote unquote wasting my time with all these video games.
I would,
but I think overall, like, well, go ahead, say your thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say just to on that point, I do think that I would probably be more have more tangible skills. Like in a zombie apocalypse, I'd probably be more useful being able to do woodwork than I would be able to do like Fortnite dances. Like I think fundamentally from a human perspective, I would have better skills, but I do think that these skills are skills that I probably wouldn't get anywhere else, which is the social skills.
They've still served you well.
Yeah.
I was about to say in a zombie apocalypse, it might be useful to be like a woodworker. It probably would be. But I think in any Armageddon scenario, we also need people who are like humans.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's probably something useful that you've picked up from video games. You know, people who read and experience and do things like that.
You got me thinking about and I hate I hate to quote him, sort of, but
Oh no, is it Gary V?
it's Gary V, baby.
I knew it was Gary V. I was like, he about to quote Gary V.
Just because. So he kind of made this distinction a little bit about, or he has a little rant about the what if. You know, people talking about what if I do this, what if I do that. I don't know which choice to make, and he says just make a choice and do it. And he says people make the choice and then they're thinking about, man, what if I would have done the other thing? Now I don't know what my life would be so much different. And then he said, yeah, it would be different. But then he takes it really far. He says, yeah, like, so using the woodworking as an example, like, yeah, what if you would have went into woodworking and then you had a good year of doing woodworking and then one day your machine went haywire and cut your arm off and then you couldn't work anymore. And it's like, well, then you'd be in a worse position than you are now because you've had a successful career doing what you wanted to do from the beginning. And he's like, and he says that to say, you know, we really just don't know genuinely. And he puts unfortunately, a negative spin on it, saying that maybe the choice you thought was better before is actually the worst choice. But I think in general, the idea is that, you know, the choice you made isn't bad just because you don't know what the other choice is, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And then he follows up saying, do you have a family? If you have a family, you're putting too much effort in it. I didn't have a family. I birthed myself, and I sold newspapers on the block to crackheads to make it here.
What's 6 months old?
When I was 6 months old,
I couldn't speak.
I lifted up my bootstraps by myself.
I made the bootstraps. I made them.
I breathed life into the earth, and I said, "Let there be light."
Let there be me. Because of me. He said, "Let there be me."
Gary V.
Give me money.
So let me ask. I guess as we wrap this up, that's a great question, Steve, because it got me thinking. But it got me thinking about this. What is one thing that you've gained from gaming that you don't think you could have gained any other way? Like from this hobby, this thing that we love, that we do. Maybe it's a skill, maybe it's a way of thinking, maybe it's whatever. But can you think of anything that gaming gave you that you might not have gotten from another thing? You know what I'm saying?
Not to sound like sentimental.
Uh-oh.
Then don't. Just don't.
You got me. Now I'm tearing up over here thinking about it. But it genuinely, gaming is the only reason why I know you guys. Oh. And because of gaming as the introduction to meeting Brad, that has thrown us into wild adventures and the sort. And so, and that's progressed to now, because of gaming, we're now on a podcast, you know? And so it's like bridging those types of gaps, making those kind of connections. I think, you know, I really appreciate gaming in my life because of that.
Well, we appreciate gaming too. Not you, but gaming. No,
yes, gaming.
Really,
yeah,
we appreciate
gaming. I appreciate gaming for the concept of you.
Being on this podcast is a means to an end.
You're like an imaginary friend. Like,
yeah.
But like if not for gaming, Kyle, I wouldn't know you guys anymore because it was our connection through our first job at IBM, and you guys are very far away from me now. And so it's like I can almost guarantee that our ties would have been severed.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
Kyle came to my wedding.
I did come.
That's I mean, it's kind of weird to think about, but like as I examine that, I'm like, you know, I've had a lot of good friends over the years, and I had a pretty small guest list at my wedding, but Kyle was there.
I was on the list. Well, I wasn't on the list, but I still showed up.
You were on the list.
I was there too. Just for people to know, I was there too.
Yeah, but that's not as amazing, right? Because I've known you outside of gaming.
Yeah. Georgia Tech.
But because of gaming, Kyle was there too.
Because of gaming.
Of gaming.
I mean, not to cheapen my relationship.
That should just be like,
yeah,
because of gaming.
The idea of Kyle came to mind.
What about you, Steve? Anything? I mean, no, that's real. I appreciate the Kyle. Human connection, honestly, without gaming.
Yeah,
and kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, I feel like I wouldn't have as many friends or no people without gaming.
I mean, I'll definitely second that. Some of my closest friends from Louisiana I met through a gaming clique, and I still keep up with a couple of them to this day.
To this day.
I knew I was baiting that. I hate it when you guys do that, but I baited it. I did it on purpose. It's my own fault. So yeah, I'll definitely second that. Friendships, specifically with Kyle, but also specifically with a few others. I'm trying to think. Definitely a way of thinking. My perspective has been colored by the experiences that I've had. And, it's opened my eyes to like the ideas of the way that the world could be if like physics were different, but also just like, in an alternate world. And some of that I do think I could get from books. So, fair is fair. I do think I might have still turned out similar to how I am. But, I wonder how much I would be interested in like computing and programming if I had not liked games as a kid. And that's become my whole career, so I might have an entirely different career than I have now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I might actually be using my degree if I hadn't been into games.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't. You would.
Look here, kids. When you get a degree, don't use it.
Was it like 20% of graduates actually use their degree?
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's less, man.
It probably is less.
I think about like every time I watch a modern show or even an old show where kids are in high school and they're about to go into college and they're all like freaking out about like what college to pick. Mm-hmm. I'm like, don't freak out. Just like go to a college you like
and live life.
That's not gonna like destroy you with that.
Yes.
Oh, please.
And,
preach.
Take a major that you're interested in.
Don't rule out trade schools.
Don't rule out trade schools. Yeah. You can learn valuable skills and start a career very quickly with trade schools.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, college is basically just long form day camp. It's just like a holding ground for adolescence. Like it just keeps you, it just delays.
It does.
If high school is like preschool, then college is like, day camp, daycare.
But to kind of like echo both of what y'all said. One, of course, like you said, Kyle, like I wouldn't know y'all, and I wouldn't also know a lot of other people as well. But I mean, I was telling somebody the other day. Oh, actually, shout out to Beth. One of, she's retiring. Shout out to her.
Realist, good old Beth.
I was chatting with her and just catching up. We hadn't talked in a while, and I was just telling her like I still talk with y'all basically daily, and I was like, yeah, like we talk all the time, like daily, like, blah, blah, blah. And then it occurred to me like, wow, like a lot of this is just genesis of course, game development, me and Kyle, of course, Steve, being back in college, but also just our mutual love for gaming, our mutual ability to tolerate each other. But I feel like the gaming element kind of binds us. But also, I think the big thing is what you said, Steve, the creative thinking. Or the different thinking.
I think out of the box.
I think like gaming and anime have done this for me, that they've really made me consider how I think. Like I see the world, like I grew up in a community where most people look like me. They were black and they like the same music as me and they like the same things as me. And it's easy to just be that. But gaming exposed me to different countries, different languages, different ways of thinking, different, like just things that I never in my little Stone Mountain box that I grew up in, I would have never experienced. For sure. And now I can connect with people from across the world in ways that I couldn't have without gaming. Like I can meet a guy or a girl from a completely different country and be like, have you played Ocarina of Time? Oh my gosh, I love Ocarina of Time. We immediately connect, But also, it's helped me to creatively think outside of the box. And I think one of the skills and one of the gifts that God has given me is creativity. But I think gaming has amplified that, to a point where I feel like I can look at any scenario and think of it in a very creative, new approach. And I think I get a lot of that from gaming. And of course, another thing is I think strategy. gaming has taught me strategy.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big strategy gamer, and so it's just natural now for me to think about how do you approach something in my job, in my marriage, in my friendship.
Yeah, that's an extremely useful, like, real world skill.
Oh, and one last thing. It has taught me perseverance.
Ooh.
Like, if you, as a programmer,
Come on now.
the one thing that I can tell somebody is made for programming is how quickly a very difficult problem breaks them. Like, if you're like, I'm done with this. I can't do this no more. I'm like, okay, cool. But I feel like gaming prepared me for for programming, because hitting that wall, being on that same difficult boss or difficult platforming section or what have you for 2-3 hours,
Days,
weeks, like
Not a week.
weeks as a kid, Super Nintendo games, weeks, son, months. Matter of fact, I still haven't beat the spider boss in
Mega Man?
in Ninja Gaiden 2.
Oh, that's bad.
he tried
When
last
I was
week.
4 years old. I played that game up until I was like 10. You know what I'm saying? Never beat the spider boss, but I never gave up. And I feel like it's taught me.
You eventually gave up.
I gave up just because we didn't have our NES like around us anymore. Other systems came around.
So you got to redeem yourself your next stream.
I gotta find Ninja Gaiden too. But I say that to say it's taught me perseverance, and something that I don't think I could have gotten. Maybe I could have gotten it through martial arts or like Boy Scouts or something. But man, come on, really?
I think one of the unique things though is like what you're persevering through. It's like persevering through real world scenarios. I don't want to downplay in any way, but I think because of the vastness of gaming experiences and how varied the trials are, like you just instinctively, because the real world by comparison is so tame, I think it just makes it easier to break down stuff in the real world versus how what like even arbitrary sometimes that the stuff we deal with while gaming is. And it's like, oh, this isn't so bad, whenever we're dealing with an actual problem. So it kind of brings, like you were saying earlier, it brings your creative thinking to a level that many people will never even consider because they never exercise that side of their brain, if you will.
Yeah. There's nothing like being in Fortnite in a situation where you don't know what to do and you just have to like navigate it. And sometimes you lose and sometimes you win. And you learn something. And it even like tells me something about my real life. Like, I need to consider a different approach because every time I do this, I lose. I fail.
Yeah.
You find out how you are under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say something similar to perseverance is patience. I think that, especially considering the house I grew up in, which I won't specify anything past that, I'm a surprisingly chill person in the face of, things that would give other people anxiety, things that give my wife anxiety. And she's commented on that. She's like, oh, you're so calm. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm overdoing it, but I think to some extent that comes from having to be patient with not just losing in a game, but like be patient with frustration from like a game coming, like taking too long to come out, or
loading screens,
a game being boring and I just want to finish it, or like, yeah, there's you have a lot of experiences that aren't necessarily comparable to real world experiences, but are still exercising your self-control and your your other virtues.
I think especially in like multiplayer gaming, if you play with randos, you get the opportunity to learn patience with others.
Seriously.
Or hate for others.
Like I've learned, like, I slip up sometimes. I play Smash Bros. Online, and I when I lose, I can get pretty heated. But like I've learned to just, first of all, not to get that heated, but also to realize like when it's time to quit. And like, control the urge to just keep playing to come out ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But like to take care of myself and exercise some self-care and just, realize it's time. I'm done. I'm just getting angry.
Yeah. I think gaming definitely teaches you how to deal with failure. Like, you've ever
Oh,
played
yeah.
with those kids who clearly have never either played with other people, like as a kid, like as only child who's never lost in something or never not gotten what they wanted, and they just rage, like they just
Meltdown.
rage. And definitely, like you said, you get upset. I get upset. I remember one fight in Fortnite, I literally like was so mad at my decision making. I remember the exact moment we're in a shield bubble. I'm reviving Steve. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
somebody's going to shoot me if I don't move or if I don't do this. And I know it. And I see that shield bubble waning and it goes away. I get shot immediately. Luckily, I got Steve up, I think, at the moment. But I was so mad at myself because I knew, oh my goodness, I could have done that differently. Right. And I slapped my knee. But at the same time, I was like, it happens, But I feel like that comes from years of failure and failure and failure and failure and failure, that I know how to deal with it now in these moments and in life. So it doesn't necessarily translate one to one, but I definitely think, I mean, come on, Steve, you have played Hades to an extent that none of us have. I think that takes patience, perseverance, the ability to deal with failure, and just some part of your spirit is stronger than ours.
There is definitely a special pain that comes from having like a really, really good loadout, because it's all randomized in the game, and then losing, and you lose like that. There's when you're playing and you're overpowered, it's really satisfying. But then if you die, you lose that loadout, and there's a sense of loss. Like, dang, if only I had played better, I could have gone all the way.
Yeah. Especially if you lose to like a careless dash or something.
Yeah, or like you just feel like it was unlucky or unwarranted. On the other hand, now that you bring it up, I think about like if you have a really crappy loadout and you're like, all right, how do I make the best of a bad situation? Like, how do I, not just give up mentally and be like, whatever, I'll just play until I die, but actually say, all right, let me see what I can do to make this work. Man, it's so satisfying in those moments when you have like a crappy loadout, but then you keep trying and like maybe you find a strategy that's really good, or you just have to rely on, your pluck to get through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, I made it. So you learn a lot.
Yeah, no, I think that reminds me of a moment. I don't remember if we actually won the game, but I know we got to the very end where like we died, like multiple of us has died, and it was just Steve at the end. And it was Steve versus basically a full team. And
I was running.
And he was like, so Steve knocks one guy, beats one guy, but there's two other dudes. And all of us are dead. And Steve has to I mean, naturally you go to yourself, well, it doesn't matter. We're all dead. We're going to be low on loot. We're going to be, you know what I'm saying? The game is over. Steve doesn't give up.
Yeah, even if I respawn you, we're going to be at a
disadvantage. But we're all encouraging him. Hey, Steve, just go here. Go up here. Slide here. Go here. And he makes it. He survives. He revives us. We come back. We're all in a bad shape. But we still just keep on trucking, keep on fighting. And I think we pulled out the dub, but I can't remember. Did we win that?
I think we did too.
The top like 3 or something.
Yeah, like we
did really well.
Like we either got second or we won or whatever. But,
I remember that one.
But to me, those are moments of triumph that I don't get to really see in my real life.
How?
But they remind me, don't give up. You can always turn, like you said, you can always turn around a bad situation. And it's so cheesy to say that, but it's like super real,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't, at least you tried.
Yeah.
And that's, because I don't see, I guess, how you would get, I guess, repeated opportunities in safe spaces like this outside of gaming. I mean, yeah, you can read stories and watch movies of people overcoming things and maybe be motivated by it, inspired by it. But until you actually put yourself through it, you really don't know what you're going to do in those moments.
True. Very true. Yeah. And I feel like even in like now I'm doing Muay Thai, I lost my first fight, right? But I'll be honest, it wasn't any different to me than if I won it. Because to me, the failure is just like, okay, cool. I know what I need to be better at. But I was there at that tournament watching some people when they failed, it looked like they were broken.
Yeah.
Like, matter of fact, my parents thought that I won the fight. Because at the end, like, my hands were up and I was smiling. The other guy's, like, mouth was open and he looked real tired. But, like, to me, I was like, it didn't even matter to me because this is like a step up in competition. It's like in a game.
You beat him in spirit.
Yeah, like I won in spirit. I didn't lose. I didn't take an L, but I didn't get the dub. You know, like
Yeah.
And I feel like in games it's the same when you play like a better Smash player than you, or you know, a better Halo player. Like you just got worked. Like how many times in Fortnite was like, yo, we lasted much longer than we should have.
Yeah, you start on the wrong foot, but we still pull through.
Mm-hmm. Like even if we lose, sometimes this is good, that moral victory, and I don't think you can get that easily in life. The gaming gives.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of Smash against a group of people that are pretty good at Smash, and I mean I've done this before where like you lose a really early stock and it just demoralizes you because you're like, man, I'm not going to come back from this. And I've been there, you know, I've actually been demoralized, but I also see it happen to others, and I'm always trying to encourage, like, hey man, don't get in your feelings. Like, let's try to finish it out.
Yeah.
And I think it gives you the opportunity to realize what your standard is too, like where your expectations lie. Because if they do lie with the people that you know are better than you, or something that's outside of yourself, then you're going to get frustrated every single time. But if it's like the examples Brad's making is we're improving within ourselves, you know, and you know we're having the little victories that maybe only matter to us, because in the grand scheme of things, if you're looking at the score tally, only the last team wins, quote unquote, these battles. But you know, if that's not where your fun lies, if that's not where your victory lies, or the value that you're getting out of it. Yeah.
How many times have we got wiped by a team, and then they go to win? They like that team ends up winning, and we're like, yeah, the winners killed us.
Exactly. Feeling. It's like, we lost to the best.
Yeah, or like one dude came through and just killed all of us, and you're like, oh, that guy's strong.
Level 256.
It took him to kill us. You know, it's like, nah.
The guy beats us, and you're like, I think he's cheating. Like, you know, he's just so good. You're like, he has to.
Well, I mean, that's probably not a good mentality to have. But like, yeah, you know, just taking the little victories in your loss is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this for a while now.
Yeah.
A little tangent.
So I definitely want to wrap up this episode. We've been going for a while. I think we could talk about this even longer. I did want to share one last story that I thought as a person, I think that gaming has had an impact on me in a way that I never thought. So I think we were talking about how I really am into Game Informer's replay or super replay, where they replay games. So there's a particular guy who works at Game Informer. His name is Andrew Reiner. They call him Reiner, and he's always on the episodes. He's like a editor, like a senior editor. But one thing that he taught me as an individual is how to be more of an encourager and less of a criticizer. Because he'd be watching people play a game and they'd be getting worked. But instead of saying, hey, do this, do that, do this, he would be more like, oh, if you just try this, you'll be better. He's like, oh, that was great. Oh, that was great. But like, try to, like he taught me something about my personality. Like, I'm naturally a criticizer. Like, that is just who I am. And it's easy for me to critique people. Oh, you should have done this. You should have done that. And y'all play games with me. You probably know that. But I think in watching somebody, how they played a game, taught me how to be better in like work. Like now when I'm in like working with people who might not be as adept as me or doing as well, instead of like out of the box criticizing them, I realized, you know what? They did something good. Like, even if it's not to the degree that I wanted, they did something good. Let me encourage them, you know?
You're not complete trash.
Exactly. And I feel like even in Fortnite, once again, I'm not perfect, but I do feel that I have a better experience and I enjoy playing with y'all more because I can see a lot of the great things y'all do instead of the other way around where I'm like, oh, he missed that shot, or, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, like I can really enjoy the experience more because I'm like, oh, that was really fun. Like, I love how Steve did this, and like he threw that bubble down at the perfect time, and then we all moved this way, and da da da. Like, instead of saying like, oh, you should have thrown the bubble 3 degrees to the left, like that's who I naturally am, So I feel like gaming has taught me to be honest, a better person in some ways. So never stop gaming.
Never stop.
You'll be better for it.
But it's also a choice because there are plenty of trolls who know that about themselves, but continue to be that person. They don't self-evaluate and change. Even in many of them don't get the criticism because they shout at somebody and then immediately disconnect. So, but if
Just,
you know,
yeah.
that self-evaluation is important, and realizing that maybe I flew off the handle there. Maybe I'm doing too much.
And I feel like it's a safe environment. Gaming is a safe environment for me to grow. Y'all are a lot more patient than my boss. I can't be yelling at my boss, throw the bubble shield down. So anyway, I mean, if there's anything I take away from this is like, there's many reasons why we still play games, and it's hard for me to imagine us stopping in our lifetime.
For sure.
Unless something catastrophic happens.
It has to be taken away.
Literally taken.
Unless we lose Fortnite 7 times in a row and I give up, I swear off video games forever.
Just breaks your spirit, like.
Yeah, all this talk about perseverance and pluck.
I feel like
I have a
if you got shot in the head 7 times by like a heavy sniper, like that is the worst feeling, to just get killed like almost instantly. If that happened 7 times, I could see that breaking a person's spirit.
For sure. Time to put it down.
I'm done. I'm done here.
You gave it your best.
I gave it my best. I'm done with gaming. But really, honestly, like gaming is a part of our heart. It's made us who we are. And yeah, like there's other things we could be doing with our time that could be quote unquote more productive. But I feel like I'm happy. I'm happy with being a gamer, being an adult, being a gamer. So thanks for listening. Thank you so much for kicking it. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I feel like it was real. It was like super real, going into places we've probably never gone and thought about as gamers. But think about why you game. What keeps you going? And if you're not a gamer, it's time to reconsider.
It is time.
It is time. The brick. But so sorry.
Oh my Lord.
I'm so sorry.
Wow.
So anyway, thank you so much for listening. First of all, thank you, Kyle. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure.
It's always.
I'm bowing.
He's bowing. And of course, thanks to Brother Steve. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Brother Steve.
Hasta mañana, Senor Bradstone.
Yes, Senor.
Burro.
Dang.
You took it there. I was trying to think of a positive word.
Oh, sorry.
But as you can see, I only know like 7 Spanish words, and they're all negative. So,
They're all just dookie in different forms.
Cucaracha. So,
there you go.
Thank you for allowing me to be here with y'all. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. And as always, know that you can listen to us everywhere. We're all over the internet. If you don't know where to find us, just search us on Google, Super Agile Bros. You'll find us. We're on YouTube, Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud. We everywhere in these streets. So please find us, listen to us, share it with your friends, leave a comment, leave a review. And of course, I want to shout out to our Discord community. Honestly, y'all are the best. I love watching the conversations happen there. I learned so much from y'all. I wouldn't be playing Triangle Strategy without y'all. Shout out to Badme, thank you so much for, just being a part of our Super Agile Nation. So anyway, until next time, y'all take it easy. Peace.
Adios.
Adios, Senor.